Hey guys. This is part 33 of What If Naruto Was Sealed and Woke Up After 2,000 Years. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 76. Introductions in all forms. Location, the Normandy. We gotta do something, Jiraiya told the others. Anko looked at him. Like what, exactly? Ever since Joker announced Akatsuki's ships were approaching, the crew manned battle stations. Except for the three of them. I don't know. Something. He looked to the elevator. That led to the command deck. He felt useless just sitting at the mess table. He had felt a little jealous that Arax had gone planet-side with the others. But now was a chance they could do something. Hashirama felt the same. I know what I can do, he said. I can help Dr. Chukwas. They could get wounded crew at any moment, and she would need help. Alright, you go and do that, Hashi. As his teammate left, he looked at Anko. Come on, we're going to see Joker. He got up from the table and headed for the elevator. Anko stayed seated for a moment longer, then followed after him. Why? She demanded. To see where we can help. He gave her a slightly scornful look. I would have thought you'd think of it first, being the best in the class and all. If he was trying to get a raise out of her, it almost worked. Her anger was mixed with embarrassment. He had a point, and she was baffled. How was it that Jiraiya, the dead last of their class, seemed to become the leader? She wasn't going to take that lying down. If he was going to be like this, the only way forward she saw was to match him. What happens if he says no? She asked. Jiraiya's confidence faltered. He hadn't thought of that. I don't know, he admitted. But he has to have something. Once the elevator opened, they immediately headed for the cockpit, skirting around the CIC. To his credit, Joker saw them coming even as he focused on flying. What the hell are you two doing up here? He demanded. We want to help, Jiraiya told him. Up here? Do either of you know how to fly a ship? We're not that crazy. We want to help any way we can. Stay out of the way. That's helpful. No, that's being useless, Anko retorted. We're genin. That means we have to help. She stood by her teammate, looking just as determined as him. What can we do? Joker didn't need to look back to know they weren't going to leave. The problem was they weren't qualified to do most things on board. Luckily, he knew a few things they could do. One of you head back to the CIC, help out Sam there. The other, find that reporter and guide her along. After a quick game of Rochambeau, the genin left the cockpit. So, how is Naruto going to react to this when he gets back? Joker wondered as he kept on flying. Location, Surkesh. As soon as the video went dark, Naruto looked at Morden. Can I talk to her? He asked, looking at the cage. The female inside hadn't said a single word throughout this. Morden nodded. Yes. He gestured to the cage. Please be careful. Krogan slow to trust. He approached the cage carefully. He wasn't sure if she was actually looking at him or not, thanks to all the mist surrounding her. What he could tell was that she was covered from head to toe in clothes. Her face was barely visible, and only her eyes. Hey there, he said. My name's Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki. I know who you are, the female said back. Her voice was quiet but strong. He was a little surprised. You do? I read. Oh, that's good to know. Could you sound any lamer? Shikaka asked him. We both know I could. But that was beside the point. Are you here to kill me? Asked the Krogan female. While they had been talking, Liara had opened her Omni tool and was scanning her. Goddess, she said as she looked through all the data. What she's been through. That was a tip-off to how bad it was. Naruto needed to be on her good side. I'm here to rescue you. Me and Erdnot Rex. Why? What am I to you? She asked. She clearly had a hard time believing him. Was it because of where she was? The Solarians treating you alright? He asked her. She didn't say anything for a second, but that second felt a lot longer because of the silence. Those were my sisters you saw back there, she said. They died in a lot of pain. Morden felt a stab of guilt at that. Did the best we could, he said quietly. If she heard him, she didn't say anything about it. Her focus was on Naruto. And now I know I'm the only one left. That makes me dangerous to a lot of people. What about you, Naruto Uzumaki? Why are you here? You're probably the last hope the Krogan have. I'm not going to let that just fade into nothing. There was a loud booming sound from above and the lab shook. She said frankly, then I hope you brought an army. Naruto couldn't help but smile at that. I thought you read about me. You should I know that I am an army. Perhaps. He looked over at the nearest Solarian. Crack that cage open, he ordered. We're getting out of here and she's coming with. I can't, the Solarian protested. Not what I want to hear. Get her out. I can't. Protocol states during lockdown no specimen. That was as far as he got before getting electrocuted into unconsciousness. Objection noted, Morden said, lowering his Omni tool. He pushed the Solarian out of the way and accessed the computer. Paddock saw what happened, but he didn't react the way Naruto thought he would. Now isn't the time to reveal that kind of thing, Morden, he said. Timing short. Had no choice. He glanced up at him and Kirihi. Should tell Naruto truth now. Good as time as any. Paddock looked around the room, at each Solarian there. Then he looked at Kirihi. How many? He asked. All of them except the scientist Morden knocked unconscious, the Major replied. We got lucky. And we're sure they won't break silence? They're loyal. Naruto was confused. Someone want to tell me what's going on here? Paddock looked at Kirihi one more time. After some silent communication between them, he looked at Naruto. Here, he said, pulling something out of a pocket and flicking it at him. He caught it easily and looked at it. It was a medallion that fit in the palm of his hand easily. There was nothing really distinguishing about the medallion, except the Solarian number for 3. He turned the medallion over and the Solarian one was there. He could have thought it was an old money coin, but the numbers didn't make sense. And yet Paddock thought it was worth the trouble to show him. You're going to have to ask him, Kurama told him. He knew that. What's this? He asked the Solarians. My ID, Paddock told him. Your ID? Yes. Reintroduction necessary, Morden said, still working the computer. Of course. He looked at the human and his team. I am Paddock Wick's League of One. If Geras and Ararax hadn't looked stunned, or if Liara hadn't swore by the goddess, Naruto would have been lost. I take it this means something? He asked them, holding the medallion. You're damn right it is, Geras said. The League of One was a Solarian special intelligence group before the formation of the Citadel Council. Their identities were shrouded in mystery. Barely anyone knew who they were. When the council was formed, the Solarians declassified them, and suddenly they were in the spotlight. They disappeared, Liara explained. People were sent after them, but there was no trace of them. STG sent 10 of their best after them. Only 2 came back and they reported no signs of the League. She looked at Paddock. Although now I wonder if that was true. Believe what you will, he said. Remaining 2 turned, Morden said. Return to Surkesh. Help League infiltrate government. Paddock and Kirihi looked at him. Morden, the Major rebuked him. They don't need to know that. Best way to explain how League is still around. Would also explain next part. Next part? Ararax said. What does he mean, next part? He hadn't met a lot of Solarians before. But Morden was definitely the weirdest. But Naruto knew. He thought about the conversations he had with Paddock and Kirihi, how they sounded strange to him. You were talking about the League, weren't you? He asked Paddock. Back upstairs. Yes, I was, he answered without shame. I stand by my opinion about the Krogan. It is also the opinion of the League. We are aware of how racist the Dalatras is against the Krogan. She would rather let the Reapers win than help the Krogan. She said as much once, Kirihi added. Liara understood where this was going. If the Krogan received the cure, she would withhold Solarian support from the war effort, wouldn't she? She asked. She would. But since the League does not obey her, we can help with the war in our own way. Naruto looked at the medallion again, this time with more understanding eyes. So, I take it this signifies you're the 3rd in the League? He asked Paddock, flicking the medallion back at him. It does, he answered, catching it and putting it away in a smooth motion. He looked at Morden. So how long were you a part of the League? After collectors were dealt with, he said, still looking at the computer. League found me, recruited me. Wanted my help with Krogan. He glanced back at the human. Interest was because of you. Me? Why's that? League had eyes on you while running from Akatsuki and tribe. Got curious. Paddock explained. We investigated why both the tribe and the Akatsuki were chasing after you. We found out about the chakra inhibitors and what the elusive man was planning in order to get you to work for him. He frowned. If you knew, why didn't you do anything? We were also aware of what you were planning, Commander. We felt it was in good hands. Afterwards, we supplied the Spectres with information we gathered on the tribe. But in the midst of investigating you, we discovered also what you found, Kirahi continued. The Prothean ruins? Yes, and the information inside. We learned about humans and Krogan being active during the Prothean era. We also learned about how the Krogan had chakra, Paddock said. Once we had that information, it became clear that we had done the Krogan a grave injustice in their uplifting. This is a way to fix that damage. Still unsure about how Krogan lost ability to wield chakra, Morden said. Puzzling. Also puzzling how they escaped Reapers. But suspect you have answer, he said, looking at Naruto. I do, he said with a nod. He noticed how they got interested when he said that. They wanted to know. He glanced around the room. The Solarians still working the computers and standing guard acted like this was nothing important. But he wasn't as sure about them as they were. He gestured Paddock and Kirahi to come closer. They walked up to him. You can speak freely, Commander, Kirahi told him. No one in this room will breathe a word about what was said. Forgive me if I take a pinch of salt with that, he said quietly. You can trust us. That also remained to be seen, but he was willing to share it with them. The humans, Quarians, and Krogan were able to escape the Reapers by basically hitting the reset button. They would trigger what they called the change. As far as I can tell, it's either an explosion or a wave of chakra that'll wipe all cities and technologies while also wiping memories of it all. They get reduced to basic hunter-gatherer societies, where they grow back up and rebuild. They opened their mouths, but he stopped them. I don't know all the details, just what happens to them. They lose all memory? Paddock asked him. He nodded. Yes. Then how do they know how to use chakra again? If their memories were wiped, they would forget how to utilize it. He had to assume that's what happened to both the Krogan and the Quarians if they've forgotten how to use chakra. They had designated survivors. 2 people, male and female, would be sent into a deep sleep. They'd wake up after enough time had passed and reteach their race about chakra. I'm guessing the idea was that by the time they reached the stars, the designated survivors would be regarded as myths. It sounded plausible, but without any evidence they couldn't be certain. You know this how? Kirahi asked him. My ancestor, Kagai Otsutsuki, was a designated survivor. But she didn't have an ideal transition. What happened to her affected the entirety of the elemental nations. Paddock looked at the cage. Why didn't the Krogan have this? I don't know. That was a lie partially. He didn't know that there wasn't one. Maybe it was some accident. Another explosion rocked the room, making them all shake slightly. Topic fascinating, Morton remarked, still looking at the computer. Should probably discuss it at length later. Priorities important. We've been waiting on you, Morton, Gurus said. Thank you for patience. All done now. A side hatch to the cage opened and he walked into it. Need to monitor pod as it clears quarantine procedures. As the hatch closed behind him, he looked back. Meet us at next checkpoint, Naruto. Likely Akatsuki opposes genophage cure. Naruto didn't talk to him but rather to the female. Don't worry, he told her. We're taking you home. Morden hurried him along. Get to elevator, Naruto. Arax, Maya, and Gurus turned for the elevator. All the scientists and the soldiers started moving quickly, checking entry points and securing the data on the computers. Paddock stopped Naruto from joining his team. Commander, a moment of your time? He asked. He glanced at Liara. Yours and the Shadow Broker? She stepped up beside him, not surprised she was found out. She hadn't known about the League of One. But perhaps that was because she hadn't been looking. Something to consider for another day. What is it? She asked. It's in regards to the Dalatras, he began. Her hatred for the Krogan is well known on Serkesh. It's why many Solarians feel they can act the same way confidently. But she does not have the loyalty of the Solarian government. I thought she was the Dalatras, Naruto said. Commander, please don't be naive. This is politics. She won the vote by a narrow margin, and while others suspect it was because of bribery, we know it for the truth. And, if need be, we can have replaced her. But if we do it in the usual way now, it's certain to cause the government to collapse into infighting, which will leave us open to the Reapers. We would have to take her down legally. He understood that. You want me to do it? We want you to find anything that can be used against her and send it to us. He looked at Liara. I'm sure you'll be able to provide us with a clean method of communication. She nodded. Of course. I'll see what I can do, Naruto told Paddock. Garrus approached the elevator, but it wouldn't open. That was weird. This far down, he would have thought the structural integrity would hold. Hey, what's going on? He asked the Solarian nearby. Something's wrong with the elevator, he said, typing fast on his keyboard. It's not responding. We can see that, Maya said, her sarcasm dripping from her mouth. He ignored her, but Arax spoke for him. He's just trying to do his job, he told the swagman. She glanced down at him. I know he is. He just doesn't need to be so obvious about it, Paper. He scowled at the name. He was still getting used to it, and if he was being honest, it still rankled him a little. I can't wait for you to explain what a nickname is to the Prothean. She laughed. Is that seriously the best comeback you've got? It was. That's why he kept silent. There, the Solarian said, entering one last keystroke. Try it now. Thank the spirits for that, he thought as he turned to the elevator. I don't think I would have lasted any longer in that argument. As the elevator opened, he stepped inside. He saw something strapped to the center, something that started beeping. His instincts, fledgling as they may have been, kicked him into action. He turned around and shoved in the other's back, shouting, "Look out!" Bo! The ensuing explosion sent him flying through the air into a column. Naruto saw him hit the column and had a flash of Quan Misley's last moment. He was moving even before he called out medic. Liara was right behind him. They found Maya kneeling over him, checking for injuries. How is he? Alive, she answered. He had his shields activated. Arax groaned as he tried to sit up. Ow. That hurt. Easy there, Paper. She stopped him from getting up completely. Take it slow. We don't want to hurt you anymore. She helped him get back to his feet slowly. Kirahi came over. Is he all right? He'll live. She gave him one last check over. When we move out, stay at the back. It'll give you more time to recover. He nodded. Naruto looked at the Solarian. Is there another way out? Yes, on the other side of the lab. It's an emergency exit. He looked over at a nearby soldier. Get it open. Yes, sir, the soldier replied, heading over to the door and opening his Omni tool. As soon as we get everything here squared away, he told the blonde, we'll come up and lend support to the fight. Make it fast, Naruto replied. The female needs to get off this planet with us. He nodded and got his people to work. That left his team to get out of there. Morden spoke through the comm when they reached the emergency exit. Naruto, Akatsuki forces trying to locate female. Quarantine checkpoint under attack. Hurry! We're coming, Morden, Naruto replied, walking through the door. There was a ladder at the end of the corridor. That was the way out. Hang tight. He ushered the others to climb up the ladder first, coming behind Arax as the last one. Naruto, it's Rex, the Krogan said over the comm as they climbed. I took the shuttle. Do whatever it takes to get the female up to the landing pad. Where are my people, Rex? They're with me. We're in the shuttle, Commander, James said. We'll try to make life miserable for the Akatsuki. The Krogan sounded like he was going to enjoy it. We're on our way, Rex, Naruto said. Keep my people alive and don't get the shuttle shot down. He lowered his hand from the comm and pulled out the beasts. It's time to play the game. They stepped outside to an open-aired corridor and saw the planet was in a war zone. Ships were flying past the building without a care of hitting buildings. The buildings themselves on both sides of the river were on fire. The air was alive with the sounds of bullets firing and explosions. All in all, it did not look good. This looks worse than I thought, Garrus said. We need to move, Liara said. They came around a corner. Solarians were at the edge, firing across the open air. They were reporting and ordering while they kept shooting. Taking enemy fire from position Telsec 4. Direct reinforcements to that location and confirm. Naruto's team moved across the rooms behind them. Neither group paid attention to the other, until a grenade landed on the far end. Cover! A Solarian shouted, just before the grenade went off. It took out 2 of them. The others managed to protect themselves, but in doing so, they allowed the Akatsuki to land in the room. They turned their guns on the Solarians and started shooting. Naruto's team shot at them, and while they were distracted, the Solarians returned fire. It was a quick fight that pinned the Akatsuki. "Liara," said Naruto, "can you take their guns?" She nodded. One moment. She glowed blue and their guns were yanked out of their hands. Needless to say, they were stunned. "What the?" Naruto's eyes turned ringed and purple. "Shinra Tensei," he said, hand pointing out at them. They went flying over the edge, their screams fading fast. Arax couldn't help but stare. It wasn't the first time he had seen that jutsu, but it was still impressive. "Damn. Be impressed later, Arax," Gurus said chidingly, keeping his rifle pointing forward. "We're in a firefight here." "Yes, sir." As they kept fighting through the rooms, the Akatsuki took notice. "All squads, be advised we're encountering resistance from non-Solarian hostiles." The soldier who made that announcement got shot through the visor a couple of seconds later. As they passed by a lab, Naruto said, "Liara and Maya, go through there and make sure they don't try and hole up in there. Come out the other end and meet up with us." They nodded and went into the lab. He saw flashes inside the lab quickly afterwards. They already encountered soldiers. He was confident they would be able to handle themselves. There were soldiers coming down the corridor outside the lab, right at them. The beast snapped upwards and he started shooting. Gurus and Arax started shooting too. The opposition did their best to keep them back and their movement forward came to a crawl. Gurus saw things as grim. "The female isn't going to last long against this sort of firepower," he told Naruto. "So we got to get moving," he said back. "Naruto, Akatsuki in vicinity," Morden said through the calm hurry. He wasn't panicking, but it was close. "We really got to get moving. They're doing everything they can to stop us," Arax told him, looking at the Akatsuki soldiers. They had taken cover at a corner, and were doing their best to keep protected. Fortunately, Naruto knew a way to get them out. "Grenades," he told the Turians, putting the beasts away. They all threw grenades over the corner. The soldiers broke out of cover as the explosions went off. That was what Naruto was waiting for. Futon, Shinkahal, wind style, vacuum wave. Their armor was cut to ribbons by the jutsu as they stumbled back to the edge. They were still standing and looked like they were willing to fight. Naruto knew the right jutsu to take care of that problem. Futon de Tapa. Arax watched as the soldiers were blasted over the edge out into the open air. Their screams faded fast as they were pulled by gravity to the earth. Except for one soldier. He ended up getting hit by a ship and was splattered. "Ouch," the Turian said after seeing that. Naruto took one last look around the area. There weren't any more soldiers. "Clear!" he shouted. Liara's call was quick. "Clear!" She and Maya came out of the lab looking no worse for wear. "How many?" "Enough to warrant a sneak attack from the side," Maya told him, lowering her rifle. "It's a good thing you sent in there, mate. They would have ambushed us if you hadn't." Liara walked over to Naruto. "Commander, I found something interesting," she said quietly. "What?" The lab was studying the Yog. They were going to be used to spread Solarian influence. She looked pointedly at him. "Something to hold on to, right?" He nodded. "Right." Then he smiled. "They seriously think they can use the Yog? Obviously they've never had to fight one face to face. Maybe they should. It would be an interesting spectacle." They went through the door at the end and walked into an interesting sight. One of the Yogs had broken free from his cage and was laying waste to the Akatsuki soldiers nearby. It wasn't a fight as much as it was a massacre. When it was done, it saw them and roared a challenge. It would have attacked had a pipe not erupted next to him, blowing out a lance of fire. It recoiled from the heat and fled down the corridor. "Whoa," Arax said, stunned by the spectacle. He had even seen anything like the Yog had done. It demolished the soldiers like they were nothing. But Naruto didn't think about that. "Hey, Liara." "Yes?" she asked. "I think we just saw your replacement." Gurus smirked. Could have sworn he was muttering Sony the whole time. She glared at them both. "Not funny." "Warning," a Solarian voice announced over the intercom. "Quarantine failsafes have been compromised." Arax looked worriedly at where the Yog had burst free. "Does that mean what I think it means? Do you think it means that we should stop talking and haul ass to get away from the Yogs as soon as possible?" Gurus asked him. Yes. Then what are you doing still standing there? The obvious problem they had was the fact the only way forward being blocked by the fire burning out from the broken pipe. They didn't have the time to wait for it to burn out by itself. Thankfully, the fire didn't cover the width of the room. They hopped over the railing to the other side and crossed the room, all ignoring the smashed bodies that laid against the wall. Once they were on the other side of the fire, there was a flight of stairs. They went up and heard the sounds of gunfire. Morden's voice came onto the comm again, this time more frantic. Naruto, Akatsuki troops at checkpoint. Attempting to kill Krogan. Need assistance. We're coming in, Morden, Naruto replied, pulling the beasts free. Just hang tight. The Akatsuki soldiers half expected someone to come behind them. So when they heard Naruto's team coming in, half turned around and opened fire. Time for a little experiment, the blonde thought, his eyes turning purple. He flicked one gun into the air and held out his hand. Shinra Tensei. Like he had hoped, the bullets stopped in midair and reversed course. The Akatsuki armor held, but their surprise caught them flat-footed. They stumbled back from the impact, and Naruto's team pounced on the opportunity. Liara flared her biotics and threw a singularity amongst them. It dragged them up into the air and kept them hanging. Nice, said Gurus. Easy pickings. Take your shot, Ararax. Yes, sir, he said, raising his pistol. While they took care of them, Naruto and Maya went to the side to take care of the rest of the soldiers. Naruto leapt over the railing and turned on the Omni daggers. He got up close and personal, bashing and stabbing the soldiers. They tried to fight back, but he moved too fast for them to adequately respond. The soldiers who weren't fighting him either tried to keep shooting at the cage or him. The latter were picked off by Maya. As soon as he stabbed the last soldier, the shinobi turned his attention to the ones who didn't shoot him. The beasts went back to shooting mode and they tore through them with ease. Done on this end, he said. Gurus? We're good, the Turian said, his group joining him. Like I said, easy pickings. He looked over at Liara. You're getting good at that. Thank you, she said. Morden came back onto the calm. Naruto, hurry! Technician dead. Clear us through the checkpoint, he instructed. Naruto did as he was told in the best way. Gurus, take care of it. He put his gun away. On it. He approached the computer and started taping on the keys. The blonde looked at the Solarian on the other side of the screen. Morden, how are you doing? Containment shield is holding. We'll try to repair if necessary, he replied. Can't speak for Krogan's health, however. I'm fine, Commander, the female answered. Morden frowned. Females kept secret. Possibly a mole in STG. Could be indoctrinated. What about one of your leaguers? Naruto asked. It was possible that one of them had been indoctrinated. Would like to claim impossible but would be foolish. Possible case of indoctrination amongst League highly probable in spite of countermeasures. What kind of countermeasures? Not important, he dismissed it. More important things to be worried about. If no Krogan alliance with Turians, Reapers left unchallenged. Naruto looked him squarely in the eyes. That's not going to happen. Got it! Gurus exclaimed, standing up from the computer. The cage became mobile, moving upwards. Naruto, meet us at the next checkpoint, Morden told him. Akatsuki likely to target. The cage shook suddenly with an explosion. The glass shattered and he was knocked to his knees. There was an Akatsuki shuttle in the open air with soldiers pointing guns at Naruto's team. Cover! The blonde shouted, ducking under the computer desk. He felt the bullets thudding against the metal on his back. It was holding, but it wouldn't for long. Hurry! Morden shouted. Next checkpoint. We'll see you there. There was just a matter of the shuttle trying to shoot them. It had to go. He knew a good way. He was going to need some room. I need cover fire, he shouted at his team. Gurus rose out of his cover. On it. He started shooting at the shuttle. Ararax followed his teacher's example. So did Liara and Maya. While they kept the shuttle busy, Naruto created a clone. He held out his hand and formed the jutsu. The clone helped shape it, getting the job done faster. Once it was ready, he stood up. Futon, Raisin Shuriken. He threw the jutsu and watched in satisfaction as it sheared the shuttle in half before it exploded. There was a hole where the shuttle opened fire. It used to be a door, and they went through it. Solarians were fighting in the area, but they didn't have the advantage of the ground. The Akatsuki had that, and they were pushing the Solarians to the edge. Naruto's joined them and started shooting. The Akatsuki stopped gaining ground, but the fight came to standstill. No one was moving. The standstill broke when Naruto's shuttle came flying by. The hatch was open and James was there with a big gun. "Chew on this, pendejos," he shouted, opening fire. He mowed them all down before they had a chance. "Naruto, get cracking!" Rex ordered over the calm. Fighter ships came flying down at the shuttle, prompting it to take off. "I'll draw some of their fire." "Don't get my people killed, Rex," Naruto ordered. "You said that already." The Akatsuki soldiers had knocked off guard by the shuttle's sudden attack, leaving Naruto's team a wide opening to advance. They quickly crossed the room and finished them off. But the good feeling vanished when Morden called on the calm Naruto. Last attack compromised security systems. Attempting to compensate. That made them quicken their pace through the next door. "Akatsuki isn't fooling around," Gurus remarked as the door closed behind him. The only way they could go was a flight of stairs up. "Are you surprised?" Naruto asked him as he started up the stairs. "No, just pointing out the obvious." They cleared the stairs and came around the corner. An Akatsuki engineer was setting up a turret down the hall. "Shit, shoot him," the blonde ordered. But the turret was already up and activated. It rattled off bullets, forcing them back behind the corner. "Looks like the Akatsuki got some upgrades," Gurus remarked. "Thank you for the obvious fact, Gurus," Maya said. "Now how are we going to get through that?" Liara was thinking about it. "Taking them head-on may not be the best idea," she told them. Ararax thought a solution was clear. "Then we should go around them then?" he offered. "Those turrets will start tear us to shreds if we move," Maya said. "We're going to have to move fast." "Or," said Naruto, "two of us provide a distraction while the others go in from the side." "Liara, follow me. I need a shield." She was right behind him as he stepped out of cover. The turret, having already killed the Solarians trying to mount a defense, turned on them. She flared her biotics and formed a shield in front of Naruto just as the bullets started firing. "Now what?" she asked with gritted teeth. It was taking all of her focus to make sure the shield didn't evaporate. "Now we start walking." He walked towards the turret with a determined pace. The engineer started to look panicked. That was good. His attention was so focused on them he didn't notice the other three running around to the side. When a grenade landed between his feet, he looked down confusedly before it detonated, killing him instantly. The turret's shields were destroyed by the blast, and that gave everyone a chance to destroy it. Liara dropped the shield and Naruto opened fire with the beasts. Everyone opened fire and the turret was destroyed in seconds. While they were doing that, Akatsuki soldiers came pouring out of the exit. Naruto whipped out kunai and shuriken and threw them. The second they left his hands he was already flipping through seals. Futon, Shinkajin, Wind Style, Vacuum Blade. The jutsu-enhanced weapons went right through the soldiers. They weren't killed but their armor was pierced through and limbs had been sheared off. Needless to say, they didn't have enough time to recover before the team fell on them and killed them all. The fight lasted a minute, if that. "Alright, we're done," Naruto declared when the last soldier fell down. Gurus was already heading for the door. "To the next checkpoint. I'm sure the Akatsuki isn't done." But the door was locked tight and wanted security access. Banking on a hope, Naruto accessed the terminal and let it scan him. The hope paid off and the door opened. "I hope we don't have to deal with any more of that," he said as he went through. "It takes too much time. And if they lost too much time, the Akatsuki would reach the female first." Morden was right, Gurus said as they went through the corridor. "The Akatsuki must have been tipped off. They got here too fast." Ararax had a hard time believing that. "You mean someone willingly turned traitor for the Akatsuki?" No one mocked him for his naivety. He was still young and new to everything. It was no surprise that he thought traitors couldn't happen. "Every war has its traitors," Liara told him. "But why?" "Who knows?" Naruto asked back. "Sometimes it's because they think they're doing it for the right reason. Sometimes it's because they're afraid and want to be with what they think is the winning side. And sometimes, it's just to be spiteful and petty." Liara and Gurus looked at him when he said those last words. Maya did too. "You thinking about something, mate?" she asked as they turned the corner. "Just wondering if the Dalatras made a call before we got here." Liara frowned. "You think she would do it just out of spite?" "I wouldn't put it past her." "You don't have anything to support that." There's nothing we can do about it. True. The next door they went through opened to a large room. An Akatsuki soldier saw them come in and turned to shoot. A Varan jumped him from behind and dragged him to the ground. His screams were brief and ended bloodily. The Varan turned to go at another soldier, but it was shot down before it could even charge. Naruto's team moved in while this happened. Gurus, up top with me, he said, going for the stairs. They went up and to the rail. Naruto had his attention on the soldiers across the second floor while Gurus aimed down below. The soldiers did their best to mount a defense. There was audible chatter over their radios. Orion Squad, we've trapped the female at checkpoint 2. Take her out. Everyone hear that? Naruto asked. He didn't wait for an answer. We have to get moving. Gurus, cover me. He went around the corner and ran low along the rail. Gurus kept the soldiers focused on him. Naruto reached them before they had a chance to fire. He tackled one, shot the second dead, and snapped the first one's neck. Elevator malfunctioning, Naruto, Morden said. Need assistance? We're coming, Morden. He looked at his team. To the exit. It was close to him, on the second floor. It remained close as he approached. Damn it. Gurus came over with his Omni tool active. Hang on, let me bypass it. He pressed his Omni tool against the red light. It turned orange and turned with the Omni tool. Everyone else came up beside them while he worked. All good? Naruto asked them. Yeah, we're good, Maya told him, arms slung around Liara's shoulder. She wasn't wounded, so it meant she just wanted her clothes. I found some greaves, Arax said. He was already wearing them. Are they any good? Naruto asked. I think so. We're about to find out, Gurus said as the light turned green. The door opened, and he went through his rifle at the ready. The team followed him through. The soldiers were already trying to break through the cage's shielding. Naruto signaled the team to split in two. They went down separate sides of the room, shooting the soldiers as they got close. Naruto went old school with kunai. The soldiers weren't expecting him to get that close and couldn't react in time. The ones with shields tried to block him off. He just spun around and stabbed them low in the back. It opened them up to get shot by Maya. Paper, watch your head, Liara shouted. Arax ducked down just in time to miss a bullet. He fired in response and got the soldier in the leg. Gurus finished him off. Hey, I had him, his student protested. Not with that pistol, he replied. That was something they were going to fix once they got back to the ship. Naruto came around the corner at the end behind a soldier shooting at Liara. One kick to his knee made him kneel, giving the blonde enough room to stab two kunai through the visor. He was dead before he hit the ground, blood leaking out of the visor. We good? The blonde called out. We're good, Liara replied, joining him. Naruto, Morden said through the comms, suspect Akatsuki has cut power. Can't progress until you reroute emergency systems. Man, they really don't want her getting out, do they? Shikaka asked. What tipped you off? Kurama asked back. Was it the fact that the Akatsuki was attacking the planet, or they're doing everything they can to stop the Krogan from moving forward? Shut up. Naruto looked at the team. Someone want to figure out how to do that? He asked. He wasn't going to do it. He'd run the risk of blowing something up. Paper, come with me, Maya said, raising her rifle. It's time for you to learn something else. The swagman and the Turian walked off to a secluded spot on the room glowing faintly red. Within a few seconds the redness faded, and there was a hum in the air. Guess they got the power up and running, Gurus said. Excellent, said Morden. Can clear us. Look out! Liara shouted out. Another Akatsuki squad incoming. They were coming through the door and moving fast. Oh good grief, the Turian muttered. They just don't let up, do they? Naruto looked at him. You're figuring that out now? Ha ha ha, he said flatly. You mind doing something about them? He was waiting for them to come around the corner, just in front of the open air. He held out his hand as his eyes morphed into the Rinnegan. Apparently, the soldiers knew what that meant as one of them shouted shit. Fall back. Fa, too late. Shinra Tensei. They all went flying out the balcony and down to the ground below. You're getting better at that, Liara told Naruto while he lowered his hand. She could still remember when it took him longer to use the jutsu. Training a necessity, Liara, he said. Training a necessity. Although, he still had to work on the other paths. They weren't getting as much training as he would like. Maya and Ararax came running back. What happened? She demanded. Some uninvited guests, Gurus told her. Don't worry. Naruto showed them the way out. Affinity for destruction still intact, Naruto, Morden remarked through the comm, can clear us through now. Gurus, the blonde said. He was already going for the computer. Yeah, I'm on it. Naruto approached the cage. You doing all right? He asked Morden. Containment shield strong, he replied, working on his own terminal, but not designed for direct fire. This isn't your fight, Commander, the female told him. You don't know me. Are you kidding? This is usually one of the ways I meet my friends. He's not joking, Maya added. It's in the history books. How many checkpoints are left? Just the landing area, Morden answered. Hope not Rex still waiting. Rex can't keep his hands off a fertile female, remarked said female. He'll be there. We'll see you guys up there soon, Naruto promised them. As the cage moved upwards, he looked at his team. Let's move it. Naruto, get your ass up here. Rex shouted over the comm, I can't fly around forever. Wait, you're flying? What the hell happened to Cortez? He was being metaphorical, Edi explained. Lieutenant Cortez is still piloting the shuttle. That's better. He didn't want to think of Rex flying something. That was little unnerving. Rex, stand by. The female's on her way up to the landing area. You pull this off, and I'm making you an honorary Krogan, he promised before the line went dead. They left through a door close to where they entered. It went outside where there was a ladder that went upwards to the landing area. Everybody, start climbing, Naruto ordered, ushering them towards the ladder. Commander, it's Kirihi, said the Solarian over the comm. Hey Kirihi, he said back as he mounted the ladder. Your guys get out okay? We did. We've been keeping track of your progress. I'm sending some men to assist in protecting the female. Once she's out, they'll provide a rearguard defense to let you escape. Acknowledged. And thanks. Morden came back on the comm fast. Naruto. They found us. Under heavy attack. Climb. He shouted up the ladder. Gris was at the top and came off first. I see them. He shouted down the ladder, pulling his rifle free and started shooting. Everyone came off the ladder and started shooting. The Akatsuki soldiers surrounded the cage, doing their best to shoot the shielding down. But in doing so, they left the high ground to Naruto's team. It was something they took advantage of as they opened fire. They had picked off a few soldiers before they realized just what was happening. They turned around to shoot. Naruto's team went for cover but still held the high ground. As Ararax shot his pistol, he saw a shuttle come flying in. I think we're about to have company, he shouted. What kind of company? Gurus asked. He glanced back at the shuttle but had to duck to avoid a bullet. I don't know. I can't tell. The shuttle landed on the far side of the room, right in the landing area. The hatch opened and Solarians came rushing out. It was Kirihi's men. They ran right into the fray, engaging the Akatsuki on their other flank. Talk about great timing, said Sun. Move in, Naruto ordered his team, going down the stairs. They engaged the soldiers at close quarters and overrode them. The Solarians hit them from the other side and together they met in the middle. As Liara finished off the last soldier, Morden started talking. Naruto, don't delay. Please authorize final release. Can't leave otherwise. Coming over, Morden, he said. Gurus, with me. Everyone else, keep a lookout. Hey, he called out to the Solarians, stay alert. They might make another attempt. They nodded and shifted positions, moving to the outskirts. Gurus started working the computer. After a few seconds, Morden's part of the cage detached from the female's side and hers lifted up into the air. All right, just hang tight, Naruto told her. You'll be out in a couple of minutes. As the transfer occurred, Rex came onto the comm. Naruto, heads up. You got incoming. He turned around, his hands going for the beasts. Look out! He shouted to the others. Weapons were drawn and pointed. The ceiling was smashed open by an Atlas mech. It landed right in the middle of them all. The first shot it fired took out the computer terminal. Everyone scattered at the shot, diving for cover. The Solarians opened fire on it first, getting its attention. It turned around and started shooting at them. Naruto! Rex shouted over the comm, we can't land until you deal with that thing. It's too dangerous. The Atlas turned its attention to the moving cage. Krogan has been acquired, the pilot declared. Rex, we'll take care of the mech, Naruto told the Krogan. Can you level off and give us support? I'll see what we can do. That was all he could ask for right now. Anyone who's got heavy artillery, use it! He shouted. I've got something, Maya shouted back. She slung her rifle over her shoulder and bit down on her thumb. She flashed through hand seals and slapped her hand down on the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu. She was engulfed in smoke. When it cleared, she wasn't alone. Despite the situation they were in, Arax couldn't help but stop and stare for a long moment. So did Liara. Then she looked at Maya. In what scenario does a fully armored kangaroo qualify as heavy artillery? She asked flatly. You haven't met Jumper, the swagman said back. What's going on, Maya? The heavily armored kangaroo asked. It wore a helmet but no visor so its mouth could move freely. She pointed at the mech. I need you to attack that. Right, gotcha. Without another word said, it hopped over to the mech and jump kicked it. But saying jump kick didn't convey enough meaning as to what the kangaroo did. Its feet, incredibly large and clad in steel, slammed into the mech and set it skidding up the stairs to the landing area. You know what? Said Liara. Never mind. Maya grinned. Thank you? Less talking, more shooting, Gurus told them both pointedly. That mech is still there. The mech focused itself on the kangaroo at the expense of the others. It was certain that the armor could hold off the bullets. The kangaroo was a different story. One more kick would send it stumbling over the edge. So it fought Jumper. Their fight became something like a slugging match, except it tried to shoot him, and he tried to kick it. But the Atlas mech was so focused on the kangaroo, it didn't notice the shuttle coming in from behind with James at the hatch. He stepped back in and a blur leapt out. It landed on the mech with a literal thunder strike, the sound exploding in everyone's ears. The mech was sundered in two, the edges burned black. The blur turned out to be a panther. Naruto recognized it from when he had gone to Rio. It looked up at the kangaroo. Jumper, he said shortly. Mr. Aldo, Jumper said respectfully. If he would have bowed his head, he just might have done that. He glanced at the mech. Are there any more? Not that I know of. Then I will leave. He didn't leave like a normal summons would have, in a plume of smoke. He ran to the edge and leapt off, then vanishing in a plume of smoke. Jumper looked over at Maya. He hopped to her, making a loud crashing sound each time he moved. You got anything else for me, Maya? He asked. She shook her head. No, that's it, Jumper. Then I'm off. He looked at Liara. Is that your mate? Liara spoke for herself. I am. He looked her over for a second longer before nodding. Big Mama is still expecting joeys from you too. They both made a face at those words. We'll get to it on our own time, Maya told the kangaroo. But we're in the middle of a war. I know, Maya. That's why she's not bugging you about it right now. By now. He vanished in his own plume of smoke. The shuttle came down for a landing. As soon as the hatch opened up again, Rex stepped out with a shotgun in hand. He glared hard at the Solarians and pumped the gun once. They didn't blink but kept their hands on their guns. He walked past them all and went right for Naruto. You had me worried there for a minute, he said, exchanging a warrior's grasp with him. You know me, Rex, Naruto said back. I came through. He saw the rest of his team coming out of the shuttle. They looked none the worse for wear. Come on, we need to get this over with. The cage door was opened, allowing the female to get out. Morden extended a hand for her to take, but Rex pushed him aside and held out his own hand. Let's get you out of there, he told the female. She stepped out of the cage, ignoring his hand altogether. There they are. An Akatsuki soldier shouted. Two of them came running with guns pointing. The female grabbed Rex's shotgun and fired twice. The soldiers fell to the ground dead. She turned back to him and practically shoved his gun back into his arms. I can handle myself, Rex, she said dismissively, walking past him. He watched her go. Women, he remarked to Naruto. The shinobi saw something else. He likes her. It was proven even further when he walked after her and got into the shuttle. Oh yeah, he likes her, Sun said with a grin. James came over. You alright, Commander? We're good, yeah, he said. Thanks for the support. He looked at the mech again. But what the hell did that panther do? He's skilled with right-un jutsu, incredibly skilled. I've heard that before. He wasn't being dismissive of the panther, but he heard it before. He'd even seen it before. You mean like the Sandame and Yandame Rakage? Yeah. Aldo makes them look like kids playing with a socket. Amongst our tribe, he's known as the Gato del Trueno. What does that mean? And why did his translator not pick up the Hispano language? This was getting a little annoying. Roughly translates to the Thunder Cat. When he strikes, it's like thunder striking you down. He looked over at the mech. I think it's safe to say that's true. He's right, Gyuki agreed. I've never seen anyone wield a right unjutsu like that. The Rakiges have nothing on that cat. Naruto looked to his team. Alright, everyone back on the shuttle. It's time to get out of here. Maya groaned. It's going to be tight in there. You're actually complaining about that after everything we've just fought through? Ararax asked her incredulously. She glared at him. Shut up, Paper. They started climbing into the shuttle, one after the other. Naruto looked over at Morden. You coming? He asked, walking over to the Solarian. Of course. Must come. Have to help female. He checked the shuttle before leaning over. Have thought about why this particular female survived. Checked before moving her out. Was proven right. Guess that explains why he took so long at the computer, Naruto thought to himself. What is it? Female Krogan has right markers. For what? He glanced at the shuttle. Believe if handled properly, she could be able to utilize chakra. It took Naruto a moment to process that kind of information. When he did, the first words out of his mouth were, "Are you kidding me?" The Solarian looked him right in the eyes. Would never kid about such a thing. Complication though. Uncertain as to how to create chakra inside female. Could use injection as treatment but unsure of how to proceed from that angle. A cold pit formed in the shinobi's stomach at those words. The thing was, he did know someone who chakra injections as a treatment. It was a way to help shinobi recover from chakra exhaustion quicker. But there was only one person who knew the treatment inside and out, Tsunade. If there wasn't a certain scroll in the fox's den, he would have said they were screwed. Instead, he said nothing. Location, the Normandy. When they got back to the ship, Naruto's first order of business, after learning that his genin had helped out and commended them, was to go to the calm room and contact Hackett. Technically he was doing to report in, but he was also doing to keep his mind off what could happen with the female Krogan. As soon as Hackett came into view, he started talking. Commander, I'm hearing chatter that you're brokering a treaty between the Krogan and the Turians? He asked. That's true, Naruto said. Krogan on Palaven gets me Turian support. And how did the Akatsuki get involved? I don't know. I didn't keep any of them alive to ask questions. He probably should have done that, but the female came first. In any event, keep them at bay. I can't overstate what a victory this treaty would be for the Alliance. We'll need all the help we can get. What about the Prothean device? How's that coming along? Alliance R&D has officially begun construction. The team has dubbed it Project Crucible. We're throwing everyone who knows how to hold a hammer at it. This is going to be the most ambitious undertaking in human history. That sounded great and all, but Naruto only had one question about it. Will we get it done? I'm not saying it won't be a challenge, Hackett said, but our researchers tell me the designs are elegant. Massive in scope, but strangely simple as well. He must have sensed the doubt in the blonde. We can do this, Lord Takaikage. You can do this. Never doubt that. I get that. Trust me, I do. He just wished that Tito wasn't hanging over his head. The Admiral saluted and said, "Hack it out." Naruto left the calm room for the war room. He stood at the terminal and considered the image that had been sent about the project. If he was being honest, the completed image reminded him of a baby's rattle. Just what will this thing do? He wondered. Entertain the Reapers into leaving? Suggested Isabu. Sun looked hard at the turtle. Not funny. Well, you got any ideas? There's nothing you can do about it here, Gaki, Kurama told Naruto. You've got other things to worry about. Yeah, the Krogan, the Turian, and the Solarian in the next room over. That's not what I meant, and you know it, the fox said. But he was already leaving the room and heading for the conference table. By the time he got there, things looked like they were coming to a head. You have the female, Rex, Victus told the Krogan. A cure for the rest of your people can come later. That wasn't the deal, Rex snapped, folding his arms across his chest. But Palaven needs your reinforcements now. We can't delay. Unless every Krogan gets the cure, there's no alliance. Naruto had barely walked in and already things looked like they were going bad. He looked over at Morden. The Solarian hadn't said anything yet, preferring more to watch. Morden, how long do you think it'll take before the cure is ready? Need to synthesize base antigen from female, he started to explain. Also require healthy male Krogan tissue. We'll need a sample. You're looking at it, Rex declared. Acceptable. We'll need you to remain on board Normandy for procedure. He grunted. Let's hope the food's gotten better. Naruto looked at the Solarian. A cure for every Krogan? Morden, can you do it? Of course, he said without arrogance. Similar to genophage modification project. Working against own alterations this time. Not as simple as garbage DNA blocking attachment sites. We'll need to counteract shutdown of redundant nervous systems, adjust neurotransmitter levels. Morden, you're doing it again, the blonde said pointedly. We got it after you said of course. We'll create cure, Naruto. Don't need to worry. In that case, you'd best get to work and be quick about it. Always do. We'll be in med bay if you'd like to speak more. Mito requires tests. He turned for the exit. He looked at the Solarian. Mito? Female's real name unknown. Normandy, a human vessel. Human history seemed appropriate under circumstances. An idea came to mind for him. Suggest speaking with her. New perspective. Surprising in Krogan. He left for good this time. As soon as he left, Naruto looked up at the ceiling. He considered the future regarding the Krogan. He knew he would be a part of it. But what part would it be? Guys, I'd like your opinion on something, he asked them. What? The both of us? Rex asked, giving the Turian in the room a suspicious look. Yes, Rex. It concerns the Krogan and a topic I've already discussed with Victus. He looked at them. Morden told me something about Mito back on Surkesh. He believes it's the reason why she was the only one who survived. I thought the female was just lucky, said Victus. It could be that. But it could also be that she has the right markers for chakra. He waited for them to react. It didn't take long. She has chakra. They both shouted, their voices coming together. No. I said she has the right markers. If she's given the right treatment, she could be able to use chakra. Well, give her the treatment then, Rex demanded. It's not as simple as that, Rex. He glowered at the blonde. Why not? Because the only person I know who can do the procedure confidently is 2,000 years dead. While the Krogan was confused, the Turian understood. You want to know if you think now is a good time to use the Edo Tensei, Victus said to him. He nodded. Yeah, I do. Edo Tensei? What the hell is that? Rex asked, looking at them both. The shinobi didn't want to get into a long explanation about it, so he went with the shortened version. Just think of it as me being able to bring someone back from the afterlife at the cost of killing someone. He understood. And you have someone in mind? Yes, Tsunade. Then do it. Rex, did you not hear a word I said? He asked. I did. Do it. I'd have to kill someone to do it. He shrugged. I'm guessing you've already got a system in for that. If it were me, I'd use people who are going to die anyway. It'd be no great loss. While Victus wouldn't have put it so crassly, he agreed with Rex. Commander, you said it yourself that the Krogan used to be one of the wisest races in the galaxy, and that they had chakra. If the female is able to use chakra and pass it on to cured Krogan, they could very build themselves up into what they used to be. If that means you have to sacrifice someone for it to work, you have to take that step. He's right, you know, Kurama told Naruto, joining their argument. He was just crasser about it. You need to get over your hesitance about using the damn thing and help them out. You're the one who gave Rex the will of Krogan. You should help him achieve that dream. Naruto was cornered by the three of them. The only thing he could say was I'll have to think about it. Rex kicked that to the curb. There's no thing about this, Uzumaki. If you've got a way to help us, help us. It's simple as that. He's right, Shikaka said. Hey, how about that? You agreed with Kurama. Both the Ichibi and Kyubi flattened their expressions, but not for the reason he had been hoping for. Naruto, the fox, all but growled. Help them. Is there anything else we need to talk about? He asked Victus and Rex. Victus looked out the window. There's a small matter concerning a ship we've lost contact with, he said, turning back to look at him. What happened? He glanced at Rex. I'd rather discuss it in private. He hesitated when he said those last two words. The Krogan heard it. Turian problems can't even come close to what I've got, he said. And what do you got, Rex? Naruto asked. Some of my men went missing. The rest we can discuss. He threw a look at Victus. Somewhere else. All right, the both of you be in the war room. I'll talk to you later. Right now, he needed some time alone. He ended up in his private quarters, sitting on the couch and staring at the scroll. It laid almost innocently on the table, where it had been since he first opened it. If he was on a planet in a building, he would have thrown the damn thing out a window. He was still tempted to do it. But the fact was that everyone was right. He could help the Krogan, and he had the means to do it. He just had to sacrifice a life. His hand reached out for the scroll but stopped halfway. He was still uncertain about it all. Naruto, you can't stall anymore, Kurama told him. Everyone you've talked about the Edo Tensei has told you to use it. Do you want to talk to Hackett to have a clear conscience? That had been a thought. Hackett had been the one who gave him the scroll back on Earth. He must have known what it was. The fox would have none of it. Do it, Naruto. His hand stretched out again for the scroll. He picked up and opened it. He read it all. The precise instructions to utilize the jutsu, the steps, and the rules. There were also several seals inscribed on the paper after the instructions. The seals had lists next to them, telling him what villages the seals held and from what time. There was something clinical about those seals that made him feel depressed. As he reached the end, there was nothing he saw that showed him a way out of sacrificing a life. It was grim, what he was being voiced to do. But then, at the end, he found one more seal. This was different from the seals before. Its configuration told him it was holding something in stasis, something living. He had heard about seals like that being developed but didn't think it was actually possible. There was a note next to the seal. Naruto, I'd figured you'd be queasy about using this jutsu properly by the time things took a turn for the worse. Watch my video. Video? He asked. What video? Then he remembered what Black Zetsu had said, back on the moon. He had left information on Naruto's Omni tool. The shinobi activated his Omni tool and searched through his video archive. It didn't take him long to find the video. He played it, and Black Zetsu appeared on the screen, against the gray wall. Hello, Naruto, he began. If you're watching this, that means you've found the Edo Tensei. There's a situation that requires you use it, and you don't like the fact that you have to probably kill someone to use it. I'm not surprised, you are you after all. So instead of wasting time worrying about trying to figure if you should kill someone, I've given you a way out. At the end of the scroll, you'll find a stasis seal. Inside are 5 white setsus that you can use. They'll be there to whet your appetite for the jutsu. I'm sure that you'll find more white setsus during your war. I know, I've prepped them. Don't look so surprised, he said mockingly. I've had 2,000 years to get ready and I wasn't stuck on Earth. Since you'll probably need help finding them, try looking in places like Tuchanka. Have fun. The video ended and he was left staring at the seal. He couldn't believe it. You think he's playing with me? He asked his tenants. He knew so well enough to give you a moral loophole, Kurama said flatly. I don't think he was playing with you. He took a moment to examine the seal. It showed him that it could hold a lot more than 5 white setsus, infinitely more. That meant he could use the Edo Tensei a lot more, greatly helping the war effort. And all I would have to do is select what blood to use, he thought, looking back at the selections. There weren't just bloods from the elemental countries. All of Earth's history was in here. He stood up and created a clone. Stand at the ready, he told it. You got it, boss, the clone replied seriously. It sat at the foot of the bed and waited. He grabbed the scroll and walked out of the Denver. He looked up at the ceiling. EDI, he called out. Commander? EDI asked. Lock the door to the Denver. If anyone needs to find me, I'll be bunking in the shuttle bay. I understand. Should I find you a hammock? He didn't ask her how she knew that. If you can, thanks. But I'm sure that Liara and Maya have a spare one I can borrow. Are you seriously not going to stay in your own quarters? Isabu asked as he went into the elevator. Kurama knew what he was thinking and he disapproved. Oh, he's doing much more than that, aren't you, Gaki? Hey, you wanted me to do this. I'm doing this, Naruto said back. What you're doing is half-assing this, and it's going to come bite you in the ass. And since you're summoning Tsunade, I'd be willing to bet that you're going to get punched through the bulkhead for what you're going to do. It's the best thing to do. It's the cowardly way to do it. When did you become a coward, Naruto? He challenged, trying to bait the blonde into getting angry. But he didn't go for it. The elevator opened on the crew deck. Dr. Chukwas was coming out of the med bay while he was walking towards it. Commander, come to check up on our guest? She asked him. He stopped and talked to her. You get kicked out? She shook her head. No, I left voluntarily. Dr. Morden was a little hesitant with someone else being in the room with Mito. He probably would have asked me to leave soon, so I bowed out when I could. That's still your med bay document. Not his. I'm aware, and if we have injured personnel who need treatment, I will step inside and help them. Until then, I'm content to wait at the mess table and offer my help from there. Hashirama has been a great help. I'm sure he can adapt to that. Shit. He hadn't considered Hashirama when he came down. He glanced over at the medbay. Doctor, until I say otherwise, don't send Hashirama into the medbay, he told her. She looked at medbay herself, then at him with a curious look. May I ask why? Yeah, why, Naruto? Gyuki asked him. Why don't you want Hashirama in the medbay? He doesn't need to see what's going to happen in there, he told Dr. Chukwas. Her eyebrows raised questioningly. Goodness, Commander. It sounds like you're going to do something horrible in there. Not horrible. Just really uncomfortable. Keep him out, please? All right. He walked into the med bay, getting the surprise of both Morden and Mito. Commander, did not expect to see you so soon, the Solarian remarked. Would have thought more time would be taken. I won't be here long, he told them, laying the scroll down on the ground and flipping it open. He found the seal at the end and pressed his fingers against it. Kai, release, he muttered, activating the seal. Morden watched in fascination as two plumes of smoke appeared from the scroll. They dissipated quickly enough and he saw two humans standing before him. Their skin was pale in that way they had never seen sunlight. Their hair was a kind of green that reminded him somehow of moss. Their eyes were yellow and no pupils. All things told him they weren't human, as well as the fact those same eyes were dulled. They just stood there, waiting for something to happen. Question. Naruto, the Solarian asked the blonde. What are these? A moral loophole, he answered as he pulled the needed blood out and releasing the necessary scroll. He rolled up the original scroll and placed it to the side. You might want to keep back, Morden. He poured the barest amount of blood onto his hands. I don't know how far out the array will spread. Of course, we'll wait by Mito, Morden said, keeping back. He slapped his hands onto the scroll, forming two pools of blood. The blood started moving towards the white setsus, forming beneath their feet. He clasped his hands together and channeled his chakra. Kuchios, Edo Tensei, summoning, impure world resurrection. The sealing array spread out across the floor and then over the walls. Anything that had a surface the array had to cross was covered by it. Later Naruto would think that the array would look like some kind of exotic bird spreading its wings. But at that moment, he was more focused on watching the white setsus be covered in ashes and paper. When the summoning was done, the paper peeling back and revealing who he summoned, he stood up and walked around to them. Hello, Tsunade, Shizen, he said to them both. They weren't old like he had seen in the videos. They looked exactly he remembered them, in the prime of their lives, although with Tsunade, that was definitely misleading. The only thing different was their darkened eyes. Both women blinked, trying to figure out where they were. Then they saw him. Naruto? Shizen said first. Is that really you? He nodded. It's me. How? Edo Tensei, Tsunade said shortly as she checked herself. I was dead for a long time. You brought us back, she said to Naruto. Her voice wasn't quite accusing, but there was a note of it. I did. She looked ready to ask another question. There's no time to explain. He reached up to their foreheads and pressed his fingers against them. It was a step in the instructions. If he wanted to get them up to speed without taking a long time to explain it, all he had to do was channel his chakra into their brains. It would give them all the information they would need in a fraction of the time. He watched their eyes dulled as he sent them the information. 2 seconds later, and he pulled his fingers away. Do you understand now? He asked once their eyes lit up again. Shizen nodded. We do. Good. He looked back at Morden and Mito. The Krogan is the patient. You'll be working with Morden. Naruto, Tsunade began to say. He slipped around her and went to the door. You'll stay in here. Once the work is done, I'll send you back. He couldn't even look them in the eyes. Question, Naruto, Morden asked, looking at the women. Who are they? Godame Hokage Tsunade Senju and her assistant, Shizen. How? He looked at them with a studying expression. His eyes saw everything and analyzed it. Could not have stayed alive so long. Records clearly show deaths. Come back from life? Clear in front of me. Not illusion. Not genjutsu. Not on medication or drugs. So resurrection quite possible. Yes. Yes. But how? Did not arrive personally here. Blood used and bodies used. His eyes lit up. Ah, I see. Dark pupils. Paper and ashes used as mold. Signs of particular jutsu only. He frowned. Should have known when Naruto uttered words. Getting sloppy. Nice figuring it out, Morden, Naruto said shortly. I'll leave it to you guys. He walked through the door, letting it close behind him. Tsunade whirled around. Nah. It closed before she could say anything else. You fucking coward, Kurama said disdainfully to the blonde. Shut up, he said, heading over to Liara's room. It turned out that Liara and Maya did have a spare hammock. He took it off their hands and brought down to the shuttle bay, hooking it up in a little corner. He made the corner a little more private by stacking crates around it. When he left his little corner, he saw that James was at the workout area, doing pull-ups on the high bar. Hey, Commander, he said when he saw the blonde. What are you doing down here? Yeah, Naruto? Sun asked acidly. What are you doing here? I had to check on something, he answered. But now that you're here, how about we talk? The Marine kept working out. Not sure what there is to talk about. You already know my service records. No, I don't. I didn't have time to look at it. He had always been busy with something, whether it'd be training his students or fighting the war. Besides, when it comes to something like that, I prefer to hear from the man himself. Well, James started, dropping down from the bars. He cracked his neck, loosening up his muscles there. He turned around and faced his commander with a gleam in his eye. Think you can dance and talk at the same time? A wry grin came to his lips. You really want to fight me? Sure, I could use the challenge. I've already heard the scuttlebutt about you sparring with Trainer. He wasn't smirking, but it was implied. I don't know what you've heard, Naruto told him, slipping into a ready stance. We just spar. If you say so, viejo. Why do I feel like he just insulted me? The blonde wondered as the Marine approached him. Have you tried asking? Shikaka asked sarcastically. That was a good point. So, he said as he deflected a punch, what did you just call me? James grinned. Old man. He kicked the Marine in the side. Come on, that's just rude. But accurate. He took the kick and tried twisting the leg, making him fall to the ground. He went with the twist and landed on his feet. Why would you even call your superior officer that? You don't seem to mind. Besides, I heard about how you have the title of oldest fucking thing in the universe. It seemed appropriate. That meant one thing. You've been talking to Rex. We did spend some time together on Cirkesh. He kicked him in the leg for that. You know, you should really watch what you tell people, James, he said. The Marine just grinned. I don't hear you complaining about your nickname. You haven't given me time. He barked out a laugh as he threw a 1-2 punch. Ha! You sound like my old CO. Naruto swatted the first punch away. The second got him in the shoulder. Would that be before or after you joined the Marines? Before. He was Captain Tony. He was a hard-ass son of a bitch, but a good leader. I take it he's dead? He asked, throwing a punch. He nodded, which also helped him avoid the punch. He died, with most of my squad, protecting a civilian colony from a collector attack. The colony itself? There was a quick look of pain on his face. It was either them, or the intel we had on the collectors, intel we could have used to destroy them. He swung a couple of haymakers. I chose the intel. Naruto leaned backwards to avoid the haymaker. His hands touched the ground and he swung up into a handstand. His feet caught the second punch and locked onto his arm. With one twist he was back on his feet and James on the ground. That was a tough call to make, he said to the Marine. He laughed dryly as he got back up. The best part was we really didn't need the intel in the end, he said. Because you were out saving the galaxy by taking down the Collector Homeward while also bringing the tribe and Akatsuki to the light. He threw more punches at Naruto's head. They were easy to see and block. You didn't know what I was doing, James. How could you? Who says I'm blaming myself? He demanded. Sorry. He got the blonde in the sides. What are you sorry for? You're trying to end this war, same as me. That right? You know that I'm right. And I'm willing to do whatever the fuck it takes to end it. Naruto dropped low and knocked his feet right from under him. He fell to the ground hard. He stayed there, absorbing the pain in his back. Naruto got back to his feet and walked over to him. Don't get yourself killed trying to end it, he told the Marine. Otherwise, what would be the point? If the war ends, people stop dying. If everyone dies to end the war, what would be the point? He held out his hand. Whatever it takes can lead to that, James. I'd rather avoid it. James took the hand and stood back up. If you say so. You good? Yeah, I'm good. He lowered his hand. Thanks for the pep talk. And the dance too, viejo. Viejo, he repeated, testing the word in his mouth. It sounded strange, foreign. You're not going to give that up, huh? I can think of worse things to call you. Would crazy stupid fucker be one of them? He looked briefly confused, but it vanished fast. It can be, but it's a bit of a mouthful. Fair enough. So tell me, why'd you give me a nickname? It's just my way of remembering people, he said with a shrug. Some people just don't match their names, you know? So I just give them a new one. And now, I'm a viejo. Considering how old you are, Isabu offered. Hush, I wasn't talking to you. We know, Matatabi said. You're still getting our opinions. I call you that because of your experience. I would have called you loco, but that just wouldn't have done you justice, James explained. I'm pretty crazy myself, but all the shit you've done both before and after you were in that rock? Makes me look so sane that's not even funny. I'll take that as compliment, Naruto told him. He grinned. It was meant as one, viejo. About that mission you spoke of. I'd like to hear more. The grin slipped right off. Pretty much what I said. Things went foobar, and I was one of the few to make it out. If you want the rest of the story, you're going to have to get me really drunk or what? That's about it. Sorry, Commander. Just not interested in talking about that. Naruto nodded. I understand. He walked back over to the workout area. Next topic? He asked the blonde following him. How you feeling about Earth? You still want to go back? Hell yeah. But I get it now. It's not where I'd be most useful. Not yet anyway. He sounds a bit mournful, Sun remarked. You should do something about it, Naruto, Komiai suggested. Kurama snorted derisively. Why ask him? He's just going to ignore the problem until he can't anymore. And then he'll do a half-assed job of it. The blonde scowled inwardly. I don't need to hear it from you, furball. Then how about me? Gyuki asked, glaring at the blonde. Kurama's right, Naruto. You screwed the pooch with Tsunade. No, don't need to hear from you, Gyuki, he said dismissively. He turned his attention back to James. We're going back, you know that. I know, the Marine replied. And I'll do whatever it takes to get us there, Commander. Probably no more letting a Krogan hijack the shuttle so he can fly around in it? He grinned. No promises now that I've let it happen. Besides, I like to keep Esteban on his toes. He called out to Cortez on the other side of the bay. Screw you, Vega! Cortez shouted back. Oh come on, you know you enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoy having a Krogan putting a shotgun against my seat and telling me to get the shuttle flying. What were you expecting? Him to say please? It wouldn't have hurt. You lived, quit complaining. Naruto knew that kind of banter. It was the banter between comrades who had been through fights together. You guys know each other, don't you? Yeah, Esteban did a stint on Fel Prime where me and my squad were stationed. I caught up with him on Earth a few months back. He's a good guy. He glanced over at Cortez. Just don't tell him I said so. It'll go to his head. After that shouting match? I doubt it. Ha! He barked out. Good one, viejo. With their conversation over and done with, Naruto thought it was about time he went over and talked to Cortez. The man had flown the shuttle for him a couple of times. It was best to get to know him. The lieutenant was busy working at the armor rack, sorting through information on the terminal. As soon as he noticed Naruto walking around to him, he turned and saluted. "Commander, I've got news about our supply chains." "Whoa, just jump right in, don't ya?" Naruto asked, giving him the salute. "Sorry about that." "Ah, I won't hold it against you. It's just there's so much to be done, I get caught up in the tasks at hand." "He's always like that," James called out. "You need to chill out, Esteban." He glanced towards the Marine. "So you do care, Vega, or is that the Cerveza talking again?" "You promised not to bring that up again," he said with a frown. "Did I?" "You know you did." "Sheesh, they almost sound like Rex and Gurus," Naruto thought to himself, watching them both. "Are you going to threaten to get them a priest?" Saiken asked. "No, that's something only for them. To make a threat against another pair of comrades would have made it lose the potency." "Well, they're done arguing. You should get back to it." "You were saying something about our supply chains, Cortez?" he asked the pilot. "Alliance procurement chains are a little chaotic but are coming together. The Citadel's economy is still running, though. That's good for us, right?" He wanted to be sure about the logistics. "Yes. I've been networking through Citadel retailers." He pointed to one of the nearby terminals. "You can view inventory and make purchases right there." He looked at the terminal. It was a little off from the center, so he could use it without getting in Cortez's way. "Duly noted. And if you could let me know when you find a new store, I'll network that too." "Gotcha. It does take more to coordinate delivery to the Normandy, so it's cheaper to buy supplies while you're there," Cortez explained. "Makes sense. But I thought you were my shuttle pilot. What are you doing logistics work for?" "I wasn't assigned as Normandy's pilot, not much need for one on a dry-docked ship. I was overseeing the retrofit of the cargo hold. I'm quite familiar with the operation and maintenance of the UT-47 Kodiak and the M-44 Hammerhead. With my experience, it made sense for me to take over as shuttle pilot when we left Earth. I'm also responsible for logistics, making sure the armory and shuttle are properly stocked and maintained." "That explains a bit. So you handle the armory?" "I share that duty with the ever-illustrious Vega." He glanced over at James. "Though I believe the only weapon he really cares about is himself." Considering the Marine was back to doing pull-ups, he didn't have a leg to stand on. So he just replied, "You know you love the show, Esteban." He rolled his eyes and looked back at the shinobi. "You might notice this already, but the first retrofit we did was move the armory down from Deck 2. I'm not sure what the Akatsuki engineers were thinking. Now you can get off the elevator, pick up your gear, and head right into the shuttle." "As I've seen my team do before," Naruto said. Since he kept his gear in the den, he would always head straight for the shuttle. "Speaking of which, how's the shuttle been treating you?" "It's been treating me well, Commander." He looked at it with a proud smile. "The UT-47A Kodiak is a beauty. It's got an upgraded EZO core and prototype stealth technology based on the Normandy design. For quick drops, I can get you in and out virtually undetected. She flies like a brick," he added as he turned back around, "so that's why you need a good pilot." Considering all the drops he's done for them so far, he was that pilot. "You said something about a hammerhead?" Naruto asked. "Yeah, the Normandy was supposed to have an M44 hammerhead on board." "Where is it?" "It was still in the labs, having a retrofit. To afford more mobility with such a small EZO core, its design sacrificed armor plating. The lab engineers were trying to improve that. After the Reaper invasion, those labs are probably just a pile of rubble." "You don't know that." He looked him in the eyes. "Sir, those labs were on Semper Vigilavi. They're gone." "He's got you there," Sun pointed out. "I know. I was there, remember? We were all there." He didn't want to think about Semper Vigilavi. He had made friends when he had been imprisoned there, and now all those friends were gone. He had seen the destruction of the island as the shuttle flew away. There was very little to no chance anyone survived that. Anyone who was in a building certainly didn't have a chance. He looked at his pilot, and saw the same pain in his eyes. "How long have you been in the military?" he asked Cortez, wanting a change of conversation. "About 10 years, he replied, eager for the change too. "I enlisted in First Fleet serving on the SSV Hawking, flying F-61 Tridents, mostly." He smiled fondly. "I love the Trident, practically dances in low ammo. I spent as much time tinkering on my bird as flying her. Got a bit of a reputation." "Do you now?" His smile turned proud. Yeah, I do. He does, James called out. How else would he have flown around Surkesh without panicking? He'll just complain about the Krogan. We weren't asking you, Vega, he said back. So? Naruto smiled approvingly. Sounds like you're a good pilot. I think that was established already, Sun said shortly. Cortez nodded. Yeah, and I've got a knock for procurement too. They were grooming me for CAG, but my skill set made me more valuable commanding a flight deck. They assigned me to the Normandy retrofit team when it was brought to Earth to oversee all cargo bay modification. Sounds like you're doing good for yourself. Your family must be happy and proud of you. There was a pain in Cortez's eyes when he said. Uncertainty filled his stomach. You do have family, right? You saw that pained look, Naruto, Koko chided him. You really think he's got family now? Yeah, bad move there, Shikaku agreed, nodding his head knowingly. I'm an only child, Cortez began. Lost my parents years ago. I had a husband, back when I was stationed at Ferris Fields. The collectors took the whole colony. He stopped as his voice turned thick. Nice going, Naruto, Sun told the blonde. You made him cry, Saiken said accusingly. I did not make him cry, he retorted. Well, he's about to cry. That's the same thing. It is not. He gave the man a sympathetic look. I'm sorry, Cortez. If it's all the same to you, Commander, he said back, his voice losing its thickness, I'd rather not talk about it. Of course. He glanced over at James with a speculative look. Commander, if I may offer a suggestion about your students? Sure, Naruto said. Go ahead. If you're planning on doing what I think you're going to be doing, perhaps you should bring in Vega and have him be an example. The shinobi went still at that, out of habit more than anything else. If he thought Cortez was a threat, his hands would be reaching for a kunai and getting ready to use it. What do you think I'm going to be doing with them? He asked instead. Train them to be the next generation of Sannin. I have eyes, Commander, and I've read the history books. It's a little obvious if you think about it. So does that mean people don't think? Isabu wondered. No duh, Shikaka said sarcastically. The turtle felt rather insulted by that. It was a good question. Maybe they've been busy with something else. Did you consider that? Naruto kept his eyes on Cortez. I want them trained as shinobi first, then worry about them being the next Sannin. Of course, Commander, his shuttle pilot said. But you should have them know Vega and his jaguars all the same. It was a good idea. All right, I'll be sure to that. Thanks, Cortez. He walked away to the elevator. When he walked into the war room, he found Rex on the edge working a terminal. The Krogan saw him coming and barely turned his head. Hell of a show on Surkesh, he remarked with a grin. Just like the old days, Naruto. Right down to me pulling your ass out of the fire. You were flying in a shuttle, he retorted. I was the one getting shot at. And I gave you the moral support to dodge the bullets. Right, he said, not believing it for a second. Now you said something about missing men? Rex glanced over at Victus. The Turian was at the map, going over data. He wasn't paying any attention. The Krogan leaned in close to the blonde. They were scouting the Rachni relay, he said quietly. We've heard rumors of trouble in the area. Rachni? He hadn't heard of those creatures since a message was left for him at Ilium. Thought that might get your attention. I have a favor to ask. It's big. They're coming back? All I know for sure is our scouts went silent as soon as they arrived. I've got Airlock Company, my best unit, on standby. You give the word, and they'll meet you there. He said, then I guess we both know where we're going next. I guess we do. Get to it, Naruto. He turned back to the computer. Hang on, Rex. He looked back with a look that was somewhat grumpy. What? How could the Rachni be back in the first place? He asked. Their queen said she would hide away. I know. I was there. I've got a bad feeling about this. May not be Rachni, but maybe it is. Could be another invasion. If they're crawling out from under some rock, you know how bad it could get. We need to stop them. That we do, he agreed. Got a question for you, by the way. What's going to happen after the genophage is done with? It was a good thing Rex knew the answer. Once we deal with the Reapers, most Krogan will want to settle a score with the Turians and Solarians. I won't let them. That isn't our path forward. This time will be different. He meant every word that he said. Good to know, Naruto told him. Nobody wants a repeat of history. He grinned. They know we'd probably win this time. His humor turned to seriousness as he kept talking. But war has never brought us anything except misery. It's time to focus on rebuilding. What's Tachanka like now? I'm still getting scattered reports of Reaper forces arriving. Something big is brewing. I won't let those things take Tachanka, he promised, not when we're about to cure the genophage. My people have had enough bad luck in our time. You guys are definitely going to fight. If I didn't believe it before, Surkesh made it clear. He grinned again. Our females don't lack for spirit. For males, a good show of force sorts things out. But females like to talk about it. Then think about it. Then talk about it some more. He sounds exasperated, Shikaka remarked. Matatabi gave him a hard look. And what's that supposed to mean? Naruto ignored them. It's best to listen to the ladies, Rex, he told the Krogan. They do have good ideas. Yeah, but they have so many of them. So sometimes I pretend to listen and, well, let's just say Krogan females have tempers too. That's not Krogan females, Rex. That every woman who figures out she's being ignored. Never a good idea to do that. Is that coming from your experience as a ladies' man? He asked with a knowing smirk. No, that came from Jiraiya. He might have been a super pervert, but he still had a lot of lady friends, and he always knew to listen. There were still days he was astounded that Jiraiya was able to sleep with any woman with his perverted tendencies. Who else would peek in a girl's bathhouse in the name of research? I'll take that under advisement. I'm sure you will. We'd better get back to it then. He grunted. Yeah. The grunt sounded a little pained to Naruto. You alright, Rex? More than, he said. He got his tissue samples from me all right. He was silent for a moment, wincing in pain. Let's just say scalpels were never meant to cut where he cut. He turned back to the terminal. For a brief moment Naruto was panicked that Rex had seen Tsunade and Shizen. He calmed himself down. Knowing Rex, he would have asked about the women in the medbay helping Morden. The fact he didn't meant Naruto came in after him. He didn't see them. He walked away from the Krogan and down the steps to the Turian. Hey Victus, he said. You said something about a ship missing? The Turian turned around. Crashed, actually, he corrected. I couldn't speak in front of the Krogan. Our ship went down on Tachanka. Oh, that's bad, Isaba said. Now they're pinned by an advanced guard of Reapers scouting the planet. Really bad. What are Turians doing on Tachanka? Naruto asked the Primarch. He looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. That's classified. But it's vital they be rescued. They must complete their original mission. It's a matter of galactic peace. Naruto didn't like what he was being kept in the dark about. He looked at Victus. I'll do what I can, he said. He nodded in thanks. I appreciate your help, and your understanding. How many men are on Tachanka? A platoon. Their mission, why is it a matter of galactic peace? I'm sorry, Commander. As I said, it's highly classified. He started to turn around to the map. Naruto leaned in close. That's not good enough, he told him quietly. I do this, I want answers. I can't tell you. Please understand. He sounded so quiet, so much in pain. No. Answers, now. He sighed in what sounded like defeat. The commander is Lieutenant Tarquin Victus. He'll be your contact. As soon as he heard the last name, Naruto knew. Your son? The Primarch nodded as he turned around. I needed someone I could trust completely. You know, you could have just asked me straight up. I would have understood. I don't think he would have done that, Komi said. Why do you think? Shikaka asked the Nanabai. He's a Turian. Not only that, he's the Primarch. If he's trying to save his son instead of trying to lead his people, what would that look like? Naruto knew. Not good. Understatement. He looked at Victus. I already said I'll see what I can do, he told him. But that doesn't mean I'm flying this ship right to Tachanka. Morden had barely started working on the cure. Going to the planet would be too risky. The Primarch looked pained but nodded all the same. I understand, Commander. Thank you. So, the blonde thought to himself as he walked away, I've got a potential bug problem on my hands. I need to rescue a son without the Turian hierarchy figuring it out, make sure that cure gets made and arrives at Tachanka, and all the while making sure this ship doesn't get blown apart by any Reapers. Yep, it was just another day in the life. It didn't even seem like a tall order either. Codex Entry, Humanity and the Systems Alliance. Ivar the Halfman. Of all the founders of modern Midgard, none were more feared than Ivar the Halfman, sometimes known as Ivar the Boneless, ancient Midgardian, Ivar hin Bane Lazi. Prior to the ancestors' journals, nothing much is known about Ivar and his fellow Blades of Heimdall, and so third-party accounts from the sagas are considered as close to fact as one could get. That being said, many sagas tend to agree that Ivar was a wild child that Ragnar Lodbrok had found in his travels, raiding his camp. After besting him, he was taken under Ragnar's wing. The two became close enough that they were practically father and son. When Ragnar had Sigurd's eye torn out, Ivar was the one who held him down, leading to a bitter enmity between the two. In battle, Ivar was known to be a veritable storm of fire and fury, a master of all forms of combat. However, his true specialty as a warrior lay in his skill for strategy and logistics. This was because whenever he was not out on the field on Ragnar's orders, he was planning raids with a sadistic glee. Such was his brilliance that it was said that working under Ivar was a sure way to quickly go from peasant to nobility, providing one was lucky or competent enough to survive serving under him. This was because Ivar had a habit of killing warriors that had either failed in a campaign miserably or frequently, even worse if the warrior in question failed both miserably and frequently, or had the idiocy to anger him one too many times. He made it a point to never murder messengers bearing bad news, however. Due to his viciousness, he gained the title of Ivar the Boneless for his lack of any merciful bone in his body. As a berserker, Ivar was truly fearless. The only people Ivar ever feared and obeyed were his master Ragnar, and his daughter Helga after an incident he refused to speak of even until his death. He admitted after the incident that while he still enjoyed Helga's company, and truly did love her like a sister, he would not be the fool that pushed her too far. It was said that while he was a vicious warrior and commander, Ivar had a basic tenet that he followed closely. He would only kill true warriors, sparing any who'd proven themselves a worthy opponent. The murder of civilians, on the other hand, was considered unsportsmanlike. It is because of this tenet that Ivar would become crippled. After a battle in which many civilians had died at Ragnar's hand, Ivar confronted his master. The two of them argued, until Ivar asked Ragnar how his friend would see him now. Ragnar reportedly snapped, and cut Ivar in half below the waist, leading him to become Ivar the Halfman. It is said and confirmed that Ivar formed a contract with Hraesvelgr, becoming the first Gaimari berserker. Whatever skills he'd lost with his legs, he compensated for with the strength of his arms, and thus he became a deadly shot with a bow and throwing implements. He codified the Gaimari playbook by having the snipers learn to work with their eagle companions like an Inuzuka would with their dogs. The most basic of these tricks being to mentally connect with the eagle in order to have access to their eyes, turning the eagle companion into a spotter for more accurate shooting. During his time as a Blade of Heimdall, Ivar also found his mental faculties increasing. He worked harder to counter Ragnar's strategies and tactics, while strengthening their hold in territories they'd managed to gain from reconquering his lands. In addition, because he was legless, Ivar also served well as a literal back-watcher, sometimes being worn on one of the blade's back. Because of this, he swung weapons to keep his companions safe, or fired arrows to counter-snipe enemies. Such was his fierceness and lethality as a warrior. Ivar struck fear in the hearts of Ragnar's soldiers whenever he went into battle. According to one legend, during the Battle of the White Hills, Ivar was thrown from Bjorn's back and landed alone in the midst of his enemies. Seeing a chance to kill one of the rebel leaders, Ragnar's forces surrounded him. He pulled himself over to a dead horse and leaned against its weight. From there, he screamed and shouted at the enemy. It scared the soldiers and kept them back, until Bjorn's and Ub's men cut a path to Ivar, rescuing him. With the war over, the lands of Midgard were divided into 3 major territories. Bjorn Ironside ruled over Njordmark, the dwarf brothers Halfdan, Ub, and Hvitserk shared control over the smith guilds of Dien Hall, while Ivar and Sigurd contested for control over Gotaland. At this predicament, and the long years of Cold War that Midgard, Ivars would write in his journal that perhaps Ragnar was right to conquer all of Midgard. This is due to the fact that, like Helga, Ivar agreed with Ragnar's vision that Midgard should be united. However, like Helga, he eventually disagreed with Ragnar's methods. In the end, Ivar would defeat Sigurd Snake Eye in one final battle, leading to his complete dominion over Gotaland. He had no heirs to continue his family line, but it is said that the Gaimari were children enough for him. However, his successors would do battle with the Jarldums for dominion of Midgard until the rise of Vidar Black Forest. Chapter 77, Ooh, there's a lot of them. Location, the Normandy. It took some finagling, but Naruto was able to get Hackett to contact the Ronin and secure him a ship for Tuchenka, although now he felt his excuse of "I'm multitasking" wouldn't work for the Admiral anymore. He sent a clone along with Liara, Maya, and James to the ship. Once they were gone, he had Joker fly the Normandy to the coordinates Rex gave him. They were headed to the planet Utaku in the Ninma cluster. On the journey there, the crew noticed something odd about their commander. For some reason, he had taken to sleeping in the shuttle bay, staying out of the den completely, and avoiding the med bay altogether. No one was sure why he was acting like this, but they were all too scared to go up and actually asked him. When Joker was asked if he could do it, he replied, "My body's crap enough, thanks." But in spite of Naruto's oddity, the crew knew they were in a war and refused to let that distract them. It was kept to idle talk and that was it. Besides, the commander was doing just fine. He had been training his students and keeping up with the war. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing. That was good enough for them. When they reached Utaku, Naruto made a decision. His students would be coming with him. They had done well at Cirkesh. When he told them the news, he gave them all a moment to get all the celebrating out of their systems. Then he gave them the rest of the news. They would be coming down, but they would not be following him in. They would be guarding the landing site so they could get off the planet smoothly. There were some complaints, but he told them this was a test for them, to see how they would do in an actual mission. If they didn't like it, they could wait on the ship like they had done before. All three of them shut up at that point. As the shuttle flew down through the atmosphere, Naruto stood behind Cortez. He found that watching the transition from space to planet, bumpy as it might be, was a bit soothing. Plus, it gave him an idea of what to expect once they landed. It also helped him keep his mind off what he was carrying in his pouch. Geras got up from his chair and looked at the blonde's backside. "Any updates, Naruto?" he asked. He glanced back. "I already got word from Rex. He sent the backup ahead of us. They'll be waiting at the drop site." "Who's the backup?" Jiraiya asked from where he sat. He found that looking at his sensei's back was much easier than looking at the Protheans sitting across from him. "Airlock Company. They're Krogan commandos." "That's correct, Naruto," Edi said over the comm. She chose to remain on the ship this time around. "They are an accomplished unit. Their decisive action in liberating a colony from Batarian pirates made them famous. Good thing to know we're working with professionals." "They're Krogan," Geras reminded him. "I think their opinion of professional is different than yours." He smirked. "I'm a shinobi. I've got a wide opinion on professionalism." The Turian opened his mouth and then closed it. "I have nothing to say against that." "Glad to hear it. What about the scouts themselves?" Javik asked. His voice almost seemed to vibrate through the shuttle. "We've gotten no word about them since they've gone through the relay." "Understandable. In my cycle, we used the Rachni as living weapons." That made everyone look at him. "Did you say weapons?" Arax asked him. He sat next to the Prothean, but he tried putting as much distance as he could between them without actually moving from the seat. The Prothean scared him sometimes. He barely glanced at the Turian before turning his attention to Naruto. He had the same question in his eyes. They were only animals then, without technology. Violent but useful. When they became a problem, we burned 200 worlds to stop them. Hashirama stared him with aghast eyes. 200 worlds? With people on them? He asked. Javik looked him right in the eye. Measures had to be taken. That scared him. He looked at his teammates, and saw it sacred them too. Just what kind of guy is he? They wondered. No Rachni have reported being seen, Naruto continued, but we still don't know much. Geras thought about everything that was happening, and what had happened. It doesn't make sense, he told Naruto. We let that last Rachni queen live on the condition she disappear forever. She wouldn't risk everything to start a war. We don't know anything, Naruto said back. That's why we have to be careful. And why you're packing a vial of blood and a scroll in your pouch, Kurama said pointedly. Wait, said Arax, looking at them both. You guys let a Rachni queen escape? Are you insane? He looked at Geras. They both chuckled. That's what Rex asked you when we got back on the ship, the Turian said. Yeah, but he was more profane about it, he agreed. They took a moment to think about old memories. It was funny, but in hindsight, chasing down Saren almost seemed like the easy part of this whole thing. Back then they just had to deal with one Reaper. Ararax was still focused on the Arachne Queen. You let the Queen go? Why didn't you kill her? He demanded. Naruto looked him in the eye. I'm not a murderer, paper. She wasn't a mindless killing machine. She knew about what the scientists were doing to her offspring and begged me to put them out of their misery. A mother asked me to kill her children. She wanted to chance to disappear. I felt like she earned that much consideration. Yeah, but leave it be, paper, Gers told his student. It happened 3 years ago. There's no point arguing about it now. As much as he wanted to keep protesting, he knew that his teacher was right. So he stopped with a grudging yes, sir. Javik watched the whole conversation with a disinterested expression. He was just interested in one part. I have yet to hear an explanation of nicknames, he told them. Could someone please explain it? Anko was surprised. You've never heard of a nickname? No, he said, looking at her. Can you explain it? Well. She never really had to explain a nickname before. How was she going to do that? Elzie's coming up, Cortez announced. I'm bringing her down. All right, Naruto said, looking back at his team. Everyone, do a last check. He looked at his students. And you 3 know what you have to do, right? We know, Anko said, exasperated. Let me hear it. We watch the LZ, we stay at the LZ, we don't go anywhere that's not the LZ, the 3 of them said in perfect recital. He had drilled that into their heads before they had even got on the shuttle. Good. He quickly checked his weapons. They were all good. As the shuttle came to a still, he faced the hatch. Time to play the game. There were Krogan waiting for them outside. That was no surprise. What was surprising was the commando leader waiting for them outside the command post. Grunt? Naruto called out to the blue-eyed Krogan. That you? Grunt froze when he heard that voice. He whipped around. Sensei? He asked. Once he saw the human, he started laughing and shoved his way through the Krogan. Sensei. They exchanged warriors' grasp. What the hell are you doing here? Naruto asked his former student. I could ask you the same question. Didn't those idiots lock you up? Technically speaking, they did. It was to keep me safe from the tribe and the Akatsuki. But things changed. Yeah, he said with an evil chuckle. We've got bigger problems, all right. It's why I'm out here running Airlock Company. He glanced back at his men. They're tough, think they're invincible. Reckless, but effective. So they're you? He saw the humor in it. Heh, yeah? Okay, answer me this. How exactly did you end up running a commando squad? The last time I checked, you were still new to the clan. Wasn't easy, he admitted with a grin. When Rex put together Airlock Company together, he needed a leader who represented the future of our species. Thanks to you, I completed my rite of passage on Tuchenka and became a part of Clan Erdnot. I was an equal. And being the strongest, I was chosen to lead this honored company. And the fact that you're the only Krogan in the galaxy with Churka didn't play into it at all? I said I was the strongest. How many wouldn't stand for someone like you being in charge? Despite Grunt being accepted into the clan, Naruto knew there were still some Krogan who didn't like him. Just because he never saw them didn't mean they weren't there. But his old student just shrugged. I collected a few scars earning my place here. These Krogan respect me. That's good to hear, he said with a grin. You were a difficult student, Grunt. But if your men are anything like you, we just might make it out of here. He chuckled. Glad you're here to crack some heads, Sensei. Sensei? Said Jiraiya as he and his teammates came forward. What's this I hear about a sensei? Grunt looked past the adults and saw the kids. Who are the runts? He asked Naruto. Hey, we could say the same thing of you. Jiraiya, he's not a runt, Hashirama whispered into his friend's ear. For the love of Kami, he's bigger than us and has more muscles. Grunt looked them over and then looked at the blonde. Sensei? They're my students, Grunt, Naruto explained. He walked over to them and stood behind them. This is Jiraiya, Hashirama, and Anko. Kids, this is Grunt. He was my student before you guys. They looked at him like they couldn't believe it. You taught a Krogan? Anko asked him. Yep, I did. He was quite a handful. No matter what I tried to teach him, we always seemed to end up fighting. Grunt grinned. Good times. Hashirama's eyes went wide with sudden knowledge. Wait, is he the story behind the throne chair? He asked his sensei, looking at the Krogan. The Krogan just laughed. They're already talking about it. Naruto ignored him. Is the crew talking about what's happened on the ship? He asked his student. Hashirama nodded. They are. After the first few hecklings, and after Surkesh, the crew were starting to treat the genin like one of their own. Which meant stories were told in front of them. How is that possible? I would have thought the Alliance had weeded all the Akatsuki members out of the ship. Shikaka shrugged. You get a few defectors, they stay on because they know the stuff they're talking about. It's all pretty normal. He's right, Komi agreed. And that's probably how the stories are being spread. That is, if there are more than one story, Isabu remarked. The Tanuki just laughed. We're talking about Naruto here. Oh right. Good point. Naruto brought his attention back to his student. What's the story? He asked. You know the story, Naruto, son reminded him. You lived it. I want to hear it from his lips. Why? See the difference in perspective and check if anything was changed. Stories tended to get wildly inaccurate if left alone. Hashirama wasn't sure if he should be talking about the story when the characters in the story were right in front of him. But the way his sensei was looking at him, he couldn't just stay silent. All I've heard was that someone was walking down one of the ship's corridors. When he was about past a door, it opened up and a chair came flying out. If his head was an inch closer, he would have lost his nose. He turned around and ran off screaming, if I heard the story right. You heard it right, Grunt said, still grinning. Who threw the chair? Does it matter? Naruto asked. Jiraiya had a different thought. Why was the chair thrown in the first place? For a very simple reason. He pointed an accusing thumb at Grunt. He was a horrible student. He glared at the blonde. You didn't make sense in your teaching. Before they got really into it, Gurus cut them off. We're standing in front of commandos and kids, he reminded them both. Let's try and be professional, HM? Alright, Naruto said, agreeing. He looked at his students. Every time we had a lesson, we usually ended up fighting. The Turian nodded. It's true. The few times they didn't fight, someone asked if everything was alright. Suddenly, I'm glad that we aren't like that, Arax said. He and his teacher might argue on a few points, but they never got into an outright fight. He nodded. Me too. He was happy that he didn't throw chairs. While Grunt was happy for the little trip down memory lane, he wanted to get back to why they were there. Hard to believe this might be Rachni, he remarked to Naruto. Seems crazy. The Rachni? He said with a tone that could be wonder. A chance to face the old enemy? Impossible to resist. Naruto wasn't as easily excited. That would depend on the old enemy, Grunt, he replied. All my old enemies are dead. I'd like to keep it that way. Well, you're you, sensei. I am me. Javik watched the Krogan as he spoke. Yes, you are the one, he finally said to Grunt. The Krogan who occupied my quarters on the Normandy. You left your mark. Grunt looked at him briefly before looking at Naruto. What? Who is this, sensei? The Prothean kept talking. You shouldn't be so anxious to face the Rachni. They were formidable opponents, even to my people. The silent, he glanced at Naruto, has the right of it. An old enemy should be a dead enemy. Naruto noticed Grunt looking at him. The Krogan jerked his head at Javik, clearly wanting an answer. This is Javik, Naruto told him. He's a Prothean. It was a testament to his being a member of Naruto's team that he wasn't surprised or shocked by that news. He just looked at the Prothean once more, and then looked at his sensei. Whatever you say. Look, we're here for the scouts. We don't know if this involves the Rachni or not. We didn't see anything on the way down. Agreed. But this place smells wrong. Like a bad wound. Our scans show the tunnels down there lead to a large central point. If we're lucky, it's a nest. Sounds like fun, Gurus remarked. Just like old times, Grunt. He grinned and chuckled darkly. Then he found Arax. Who's the runt? My student. He didn't say anything else about that. He looked back at his Krogan. Airlock Company, he shouted, move out. And away they go, Sun said, watching the commandos leave. It's a good thing they listened to Grunt, Kokuo remarked. He's earned their respect, Isaba said. If they didn't listen, he'd make them listen. Grunt watched his men go, and then looked back at his old team. Grab what you need, sensei, he told Naruto. Meet me at the scout camp ahead. Got it, Grunt, he replied. He looked back at his team. Check inside the command post, he ordered. While they went inside the command post, he looked at his students. And you three, we watch the LZ, we stay at the LZ, we don't go anywhere that's not the LZ, the three of them said. He nodded. Good. Jiraiya raised his hand. Question. Yes? Do we have to stay on the shuttle? He asked, pointing back at it. He looked at the command post. We could just stay here. It'll give us a chance to stretch our legs a little bit. Naruto looked at the command post. It was a squat thing that had all the telltale signs of quick constructions. It was close to the shuttle, close enough to satisfy him. All right, he told them. But if things get back, you move it to the shuttle. Anko scoffed a little. That should go without saying, shouldn't it? She asked him. He looked right back at her. I wouldn't be a sensei if I didn't state the obvious once in a while, Anko. We're all set, Gurus told him as he came out of the command post. Ararax and Javik were right behind him. Ararax had his gun in hand. It looked like it had a new barrel mod attached to it. It also looked like he had a new gun on his rack. All right, he said. Let's get moving. It wasn't a long hike to the scouts' camp. Javik took one look at it as they walked in. Their base camp has been decimated, he told Naruto. The Krogan are overconfident, it's their weakness. Don't tell them that, Naruto replied. The Krogan didn't look shaken by the fact the camp around them had been through on the losing side of a battle. They just looked ready for the fight. Grunt was near the front. As soon as he saw Naruto and the others, he had one question. You ready to go? Not yet. I want to catch up. If he was still a student, he would have ranted and raved about how he didn't want to talk and wanted to get to the fight. Instead, he just frowned and asked, why? Naruto looked at him with the solemnest he could muster. I have no illusions that people are probably going to die today, Grunt. I just want to know how you've been doing since we last saw each other. Fine. So what happened after the collectors were dealt with? I spent most of my time on Tuchenka learning what was to be Krogan. In the lab where I was created, the lessons were like fighting with practice weapons. They had no bite, no impact. And I didn't help at all? He shook his head. No, you did, Sensei. I'd be a fool to say otherwise. But I needed the blood and the pain your lessons and living on Tuchenka gave me. I made mistakes. But I learned. And it got him his company of commandos. Naruto felt proud for his student for what he had done. He looked at the Krogan surrounding them. Care to tell me about these guys? He asked, gesturing with his head. Grunt was all too happy to do so. Arilok means Eye of Wrath. We are named after the fierce Tuchenka son. Rex handpicked us from different clans to show a united Krogan. We were sent because we're the strongest. Naruto understood. This wasn't just the strongest group of Krogan. He didn't know if Rex had done this intentionally or not, but he had created his own version of the Marines. James would get a kick out of this if he saw it, he thought to himself. He would have gotten into a fight with Grunt just to see who was the strongest in under 5 minutes, Matatabi told him. Sun snorted. Come on, it would have been 3. He'd have to assess the situation, Komi said. 7 minutes? How's about you use a number that doesn't match your tails? Shikaka asked with an eye roll. What was that? You heard me. Naruto checked on the 2 tenants who hadn't said anything lately. Kurama and Gyuki were still there with him. They just glared silently at him. They all knew why they were glaring, and it wasn't just because of his actions in the med bay. They were glaring at him because of what he was carrying. He wasn't going to argue about it with them. Did Oka give you anything about the Rachni? He asked Grunt. He nodded. Oka ensured I knew of the Rachni. They are respected as an enemy. Everyone thought they were dead, defeated by the Krogan. You proved that wrong. If they're here, my blood demands they die. How much you want to bet that the scouts thought the same thing? Oh. Can we get in on that? Shikaka asked him quickly. You don't have any money, he replied. So? He ignored the tanuki for his old student. You got any idea what happened to them? Grunt looked around them. It could have been the first time he had done it since getting here, but Naruto knew he had taught his student better than that. Looks like something dropped half their camp down a hole, he said. Their shuttle must have been lost as well. They weren't going anywhere. Doesn't matter. We're here to find the Rachni and burn them out. He's getting impatient, Sun told Naruto. I know. I can see that. He also knew he had to do something about it. Alright then, let's get to it. Grunt grinned widely. Finally. Right behind you, Sensei. The nearby buildings led into the tunnels. They would have to cross them in order to reach them. But as Naruto led his team through the buildings, they decided to finally tip into the cavernous hole they had been perched up. Grunt only had time to shout "Look out!" before things started falling over. Grab something! Naruto shouted, grabbing hold of the wall. Everyone else managed to find something to hold on to something. The buildings slowed their falling, but they were still coming down. The whole thing's coming down! Grunt shouted. We noticed! Ararax shouted back. I'm not talking to you. He was talking to his men. Get back! Naruto looked to his own team. They were stretched out through the buildings, holding on to whatever they could find. He looked at the exit. It was sliding off the ledge. He could make it, and perhaps Javik, who was right behind him, would be able to make it. But that left Geras and Ararax in danger. Hey Naruto, Matatabi said. Look down. He looked down. There was an entrance to the tunnels there. It was a quick way in. He looked at the exit. It was slipping away too fast. There was only one thing they could do now. Everybody hang on. We're already doing that, Geras told him. Hang on tighter. The building slipped from the ledge completely and fell downwards. He remembered the ground coming up towards him fast, the stale wind rushing past him. When the building slammed into rocks, he was thrown out of it and got slammed into the ground. He blacked out for a second and came out of it with a kunai in hand. His brain got up with his body and told him there weren't any threats. He stood down and holstered the kunai. He looked back at the building crashed on the rocks. Everyone good? He called out. Javik appeared from behind a wall. I am fine, Commander, he said, coming down onto the rocks. Geras popped his head out in the open. We're fine too, he called out. He came down and Ararax was right behind him. None of them looked worse for wear. He breathed in relief. They're all alive. That was good. Sensei! Grunt shouted from above. You in one piece? He looked up at his former student. We're okay. He looked at the path leading into the tunnels. We're heading in, he announced, pulling the beasts free. Stay on the comms. The Krogan nodded. On our way. He disappeared back over the edge. Sensei! Jiraiya shouted loudly through the calm. The blonde yelped at the volume. Ah! Don't shout, Jiraiya, he snapped back. I can hear you just fine. Sorry. Sensei, are you alright? Anko asked. She sounded genuinely concerned. We felt the ground shake badly. His irritation faded. His students were just worried for him. We're fine, he assured them. We're just taking a more scenic route than originally thought. We'll be back. He let that be the end of the conversation. His team gathered on him. They started down the path with weapons free. It didn't take them long to find something. Ahead of us, Javik said to Naruto. I see it, he replied. It was a corpse slumped against the wall. It was a Krogan. Grunt, he said into the calm, we've got a body here. It's a scout. He's been dead for a couple of days. Yeah, said Grunt. If he has his weapon, grab it. He won't need it anymore. The weapon was there, laying against his body. It's a firestorm, Ararax said when he got a better look at it. Good weapon? Naruto asked. Flamethrower, Geras told him. One of the good ones. He nodded. Paper, take it. The young Turian looked at him with surprise. Really? He asked, that same surprise coating his voice. Yes. It's about time you pack some better ordnance. Flamethrower's good as any place to start. Javik was looking ahead at the path. It seems that we will need it sooner than thought, he remarked. They all looked at the path. Is that webbing? Geras asked. The substance blocking the path forward certainly looked like webbing to him. But he wanted to be sure he wasn't seeing things. Probably is, Naruto said. Paper, burn it. You got it. He came forward and turned the flamethrower on. The webbing turned to ash in under 2 seconds, fading away into nothingness. So did the next webbing a little further down the path. As they entered the tunnels proper, they all noticed how dark it was. There was some light coming up from wide cracks in the ground, but they only provide a glow that barely lit the area around the cracks. Everything else was back. This darkness is going to make it a little harder, Naruto, Geras said. Yeah, he agreed. Lights on, everyone. And stay on the lookout. They all turned on the headlights on their guns. They could see where they were going now and had a better view of the surrounding area. But the darkness was still there, lurking on the outskirts. As they worked their way inwards, Arax noticed something. He turned left with the flamethrower ready. "What is it?" Javik asked him. "Thought I saw something." "You did," Gurus told his student. He also saw it. He didn't get a good look at it. It had been too small and fast. "Anyone else catch that?" "No," Naruto said, shaking his head. Javik turned his gaze back to the front. "I see something." There were several large objects at the end, near a ledge. All the lights turned his direction, letting them all see what was there. Naruto saw large egg-like pods that had been infused with machinery. It was a weird sight, perhaps even unnatural. "What are those things?" he asked. "I don't know," Gurus told him. "Neither do I," Javik said. "But we need to be cautious. They're dangerous." The path went through the cluster. They would have to walk right through them to continue. "Should I roast them?" Arax asked, holding his flamethrower at the ready. Naruto looked at the pods one more time before he nodded. "Do it." He walked a little closer and sprayed the pods with fire. The first one exploded after a few burning seconds. It wasn't a loud explosion, but the suddenness of it shook him and made him stumble back. The jet of fire jerked with his stumble, making the others. "Whoa there!" Gurus told his student. "Be careful." Javik snapped at him. "Do you wish to burn us as well?" Arax got his footing back and made sure his finger was off the trigger. The spray died away immediately. "Sorry," he apologized. "That explosion was so sudden." "Keep going, Paper," Naruto ordered. "We need to keep moving." He nodded and went back to the pods. When the others exploded, he didn't flinch. He kept a steady hand on the flamethrower and maintained his stance. When all the pods were gone, he walked up to the webbing blocking their path and burned that to ashes too. They went through a short tunnel and came out with more pods surrounding them. Gurus also noticed something. There were cords attached to some of the pods. He couldn't see where they went since they dug into the wall. But he knew what those cords were. "Naruto, those cords are Reaper technology." He saw the thing. That didn't bode well. "Stay alert, Gurus." "Everyone, stay back," Arax told them all as he stepped forward. He quickly burned the pods, giving them room to come out to. As the last one exploded, he looked at the flamethrower and frowned. "We might have a problem." "What is it?" Gurus asked him. He showed his teacher the weapon. "This is running low. I don't know if the tunnels are short enough to make this all last." It was proving handy so far, and he felt like he was being actually useful for once because of it. "You need not worry about it running out," Javik told him. He looked at the Prothean. "What makes you say that? This wasn't something old Prothean thing that he wouldn't understand, was it?" He pointed at the nearby wall. "I see another dead scout," he said. "He has the same kind of flamethrower." Arax saw the dead Krogan and felt like an idiot. Why didn't he see it? It was right there, slumped against the wall. Well, that didn't matter. What did matter was the fact there was another flamethrower. He picked up and saw it had a full tank. It made him wonder if the Krogan scouts ever got the chance to use them, or had they gotten overrun that fast? The next webbing blocked the path from a large cavern. When they stepped in, they noticed there was natural light shining down through the ceiling via cracks. They could see the cavern better. "Thank the spirits for that," Gurus said when he saw the light. Naruto agreed. "I hear that." They hopped down into the cavern, the sound of their feet echoing in the air. Something came out at the far end. When Naruto saw it, he thought it looked like some kind of bug. But it was meshed with machinery. There was only one kind of machinery he knew that did that. Gurus was right. It was Reaper tech. But he was more concerned about the creature it was meshed to. "What is that thing?" he asked. "Don't know," Shikaka said. "Looks like a bug." "Komiai?" "What?" "Just because I'm a Kabutamushi, I'm the expert," the Nanobide demanded, sounding a little offended by the idea. "Actually, I was going to ask if you could translate if we got close." "Oh, right, I could do that." He looked at Gurus. The Turian was watching the creature with his scope. "What is it, Gurus?" he asked. "It's Arachne." His eyes snapped back to the Arachne. "That's Arachne?" "Arachne that's got Reaper tech hardwired in it." It had 2 turrets melded into the top of its body. Turrets that were pointing in their direction. The Arachne saw them and screeched. The sound reached the ceiling and shook it. Husks came crawling out of the cracks. They saw the living and came shambling towards them. Weapons free! Naruto snapped. Grunt, we found Rachni! He said into the calm. Light him up, sensei, Grunt replied. Already doing it. He shot a husk that got too close. It fell to the ground with its head rolling away. Ararax was at the front with the flamethrower. He had been aiming at the husks when he noticed something close to the ground. Guys, we've got things coming at us, he called out. We see the husks, Ararax, Geras told him. No, there's something else. What? Look down. He did. It looked like a lot of small bugs scuttling towards them. They didn't have an ounce of organic flesh on it. It had to be completely Reaper in origin. Ah, I see. Seekers. He kept shooting at the husks. Roast them. Ararax swung the flamethrower downwards. Right. Naruto saw the Rachni was lining up a shot. Look out, he told the others. They all got clear as the creature fired twin green lasers. They pierced twin holes through a rock behind them. He looked at the rock and then at the Rachni. Take that thing out, he ordered, swinging the beast towards it. It's a walking artillery. It was a good thing the number of husks and little metal bugs had been whittled down to a bearable number. They were all able to turn their guns onto the Rachni and open fire. What protection the Reaper tech gave it didn't last long, and it died with a lot of bullets in it. The rest of the fight was just a mop-up. They gathered on the dead Rachni after the last husk was killed. I hardly recognize them, Geras remarked as he stared at the body. He was amazed that he was even able to figure out what it was in the first place. Reapers made some modifications. That's not a good thing, Javik said grimly. No kidding, Naruto said, reaching for the calm Grunt, the Rachni are here. You said that already, sensei, the Krogan replied. They've also been modified with Reaper tech. They're very dangerous. That didn't worry him. Finally, something to kill. Yeah, that's Grunt, the blonde thought to himself. It didn't bother him. Don't get yourself killed. You're seriously asking that to Grunt? Matatabi asked him. He knows what it means. And he was right. Nothing here yet, Grunt told him. Lost the Krogan to a sinkhole. Bad way to go. Stay in contact. Javik looked around. There were pods up ahead. The breeding ground must be here, he said to the others. The Reapers are protecting an asset of great significance. Yeah, but what? Ararax asked. It couldn't be the Rachni Queen, could it? We won't know until we find it, Geras told him. But if the Rachni are involved, that's bad. It is, Naruto said. But I know something that can counter it. He looked at the blonde. He seemed quiet of a sudden. What? Yeah, Naruto, said Kurama. What? Would you look at that? Naruto said in mock surprise. You're talking to me again. The fox wasn't having any of it. What, Naruto? He lost the humor. It wasn't working. You know what, he said back. He reached into the pouch and pulled out the scroll. Are you actually going to stay around this time? Or are you just going to run off and hide like a coward again? The fox all but spat the words out. It showed just what he thought about the blonde's actions. You know I can't run away. They didn't have the time to do that. But you're going to find some other way of avoiding it. You don't know that. Your track record speaks for itself. Everyone else watched as he opened up the scroll and released a white setsu and a vial of blood. What is he doing? Geras wondered as he watched Naruto pour a drop of blood onto his hand. Is this some kind of jutsu? Once he made all the hand seals, Naruto clapped his hands together. Kuchios, Edo Tensei! He cried, slamming his hands down on the ground. The team watched in a horrified fascination as the white setsu was covered in paper and ashes. When it all peeled off, they saw a human in a large coat with a high collar covering the bottom half of his face. There was a gourd on his back and sunglasses covered his eyes. Naruto walked over to him and touched him on the forehead, passing on the information. When he pulled his hand back, the man looked at him. Naruto Uzumaki, he said in a quiet voice. Why am I here? I need your help, Shibi, he said in a respectful voice. Do you understand why I brought you? I do. Good. He looked back at the others. All right, let's get a move on. As he walked past Geras, the Turian looked at him. Who is that? He asked. Shibi Aburame, Shino's dad and one of the best the clan had to offer in his day. Figured that he would be able to help us with the Rachni. As he processed all that, he noticed one thing about it. Weren't you friends with Shino? Yeah, he was a teammate. Then why didn't you summon him? Yeah, Naruto, said Gyuki, giving him a heavy look. Why didn't you summon Shino? He had the answer for that. I don't know how powerful Shino got. I do know how powerful he was, he told Gurus, glancing back at Shibi. Ararax felt a little unnerved by the man walking silently in the rear. He moved a little quicker and caught up to Naruto. Is he alive? He asked, not daring to look back at the man. Not in the sense you're thinking of, Paper. He's been dead for a long time. Javik was probably the only one who wasn't concerned about the appearance of a dead man in their midst. We should focus our attention on the path ahead, he told the others. I see more pods and webbing that will need to be cleared. Naruto nodded in thanks to the Prothean. Get moving, he told Ararax. You're the one with the flamethrower. The young Turian nodded and marched to the front. He was all too glad to be away from the dead man. He cleared the obstacles and they all walked forward into a passageway. The ground was filled with a blue liquid that made a sticky sound when they put their feet in it. They weren't stuck and actually could move their feet easily. But the sound stayed with them. There was a large metal shield that cut off the rest of the passageway for them. We're blocked, Commander, Javik told Naruto. Hold on, Ararax said, going to the side. There's webbing here. Maybe there's a way out. He burned the webbing, but there wasn't a passageway beyond it. It was just another room. Guess not. Gurus looked at the shield. How are we getting by this? He asked the others. He didn't know if they could blast their way through it. Naruto noticed something in the area Ararax opened up. There was some kind of Reaper tech welded into the ground. He walked around and looked at it better. There was glowing button in the middle. You think this'll help? He asked. If anything, it looks important, Javik remarked. And Reaperish. So, only one thing to do. He pointed the beasts and opened fire. The glow died instantly. The shield drew into the ground with a screeching sound. That did it, Gurus announced, looking at Naruto. Ararax, grab that firestorm back there. What? His student asked. He pointed at the far end. There, at the wall. You didn't see? Ararax looked back. Just beyond the Reaper tech was a firestorm flamethrower, nestled where the wall and floor met, right next to a Krogan corpse. Oh, right. I didn't see it. That much is obvious, Javik said. He ignored him and grabbed the Prothean. There was webbing beyond the shield, something he was quickly able to burn. As the ashes faded into nothingness, they were heard movement up above. Shibi glanced upwards. I hear them, he said. They are coming. That wasn't the only thing that was happening. Naruto saw cracks forming in the ceiling. They were spreading, meeting other cracks. That wasn't good. Move! He shouted to the others as the ceiling came down on them. They all ran for the passage as the boulder crashed down. Dust filled their sight and their noses for a moment, blinding them. Naruto shook off the dust. Everyone good? He asked. I'm fine, Gurus replied. Ararax got back to his feet. The first thing he checked was the flamethrower. Good, he announced. Shibi didn't look like he had just dodged a boulder the size of a parlor room. I'm still here, he told Naruto. Javik looked back at the boulder. Our exit is cut off. So we're finding another way out, Naruto told him. The lights on the weapons turned back on, giving them a view of the area. What was that noise, Sensei? Grunt asked over the comm. Sounded bad. The ceiling came down on us, he replied. We're all okay, though. Good. Didn't want to dig you out. I'm hurt, Grunt, he said with fake sadness. Yeah? Shibi kept an ear open. They are moving, he told the others. They're getting agitated. They don't like having intruders in their home. That meant they needed to get moving. Ararax saw that there were pods on the path ahead. It was up a small slope, but he could still see them. I'll take the lead, he said, getting the flamethrower ready. They made their way behind him. The fire burning the pods and them exploding were all they could see in front of them. Sensei, Grunt said over the comm, I know what happened to the scouts. I thought we already knew that, Ararax remarked, looking back at them. Gurus looked at him with disappointment. Don't stop burning those things, Paper. He looked back to the task. Right. Sorry. What happened to them, Grunt? Naruto asked over the comm. They got hit hard. Their leader ordered them to carry weapons deep into the caves. He knew the next team would need help. So they died so the people in the tunnels would reach the central chamber. Thanks for telling me, Grunt, he told the Krogan. He pulled his hand off the comm and looked at his team. He didn't need to tell them to keep moving. They walked into the next room and Gurus saw something moving in the shadows. He swung his scope towards it. A husk came out of the shadows and came shambling at them. Look out! He warned the others. It's all right, Naruto told him. I got it. He walked forward to meet the husk and greeted it with a hard kick to the face. The head came off, but the body still tried to claw at him, intent on killing him. A couple of bullets ended that. You've grown strong, Naruto, Shibi said to him as the body fell to the ground. Thanks. Ararax burned away the pods in the room. There were a lot of them, and his flamethrower was on the very low side when he was done. When he saw another Krogan body, he knew there would be a new firestorm he could use. He did find it, but he also found something else. Hey, he called out to the others. Look at this. Gurus came over to him. What? This Krogan has something in his hand. He reached over and pried it out. It was an OSD. He handed it to his teacher. He took it and scanned it. There was a message attached to it. He asks that whoever finds this bring to an Asari on the Citadel, he told the others. Who's the Asari? Naruto asked. Her name's Ariba. All right, pocket it for now. If we get back to the Citadel, you deliver it. The Turian nodded and slipped the OSD into a spare pocket. While they were with the dead Krogan, Javik and Shibi did a little scouting up ahead. Javik came back to them. A large area up ahead, Commander, he told Naruto. He acknowledged the information with a nod. Stay alert, he told the nodded two. He walked to the edge and looked inside. He could see Reaper's forces inside. Rachni were amongst them. They were going to have to be careful. There was a drop into the large cavern. They tried to do as quietly as possible, but they still landed in a stream. The splashing sound alerted the creatures on the other end. The heads turned their way. Once the creatures saw them, they started rushing towards them. Shibi, a little help, please, Naruto asked. The Aburaim didn't say anything. He let his actions do the talking instead. The gourd on his back opened and out of it came thousands of insects. Ararax was stunned by the sight. It was like a dark cloud was pouring out of the gourd and it didn't look like it would stop. Whoa, he thought in awed wonder. He shook himself out of it when he remembered where he was, in the middle of a battlefield. The insects swarmed through the husks and marauders. The creatures fell to the ground dead after being stopped short. The Rachni took the insects as the greater threat and pointed their guns at them. Their lasers tore holes through the insects, but they kept coming. Naruto saw the Rachni were busy and took advantage of it. Gurus, shoot them, he said, pointing at the Rachni with the beasts. Gurus brought his rifle to bear. Together they brought the Rachni down. When the fighting was down, a lot of the corpses were killed by the insects. Ararax could only say one thing at the sight of it. Whoa! Javik looked at the scene. Impressive, he told Shibi. If your clan had been alive in my time, we would have done all that we could to destroy you. Was that supposed to be a compliment? Sun asked. I think so, Matatabi said. Either way, he's taking it as one, Naruto noted as he watched Shibi nodded towards the Prothean. Whoa! You said that already, Gurus told his student. I know, sir. It's just, well. He couldn't stop staring at the dead bodies. Shibi walked over to Naruto. Naruto, he said quietly, just like his son. He looked at him and said, yeah? My insects do not like what they've killed. They feel it unnatural, odd. These creatures had no chakra. That made them more difficult to kill. He looked at the bodies. Didn't look that difficult to me. You aren't an Aburaim. What seems easy to you is not. It wasn't a harsh rebuke but a gentle one. Strangely enough, it hit him harder than a harsh one would have. Sorry, he apologized. Don't apologize, Shino's father said. You didn't know. But be aware of this. If you were planning to use me to stop these Rachni, it might not last as long as you would think. I understand. Do you? Kurama asked him. You know I do. Right. His sarcasm was full and unbearable. I do. Grunt came through on the comm. We must be getting close, sensei. Some heavy fighting. Tough bastards. He's having fun, Sun remarked. Anyone down? Naruto asked the Krogan. It's fine. Krogan fight better angry. Yeah, He's definitely having fun, Saiken agreed. They continued down the path, clearing the pods in the way. They were through when Ararak stopped and looked at his firestorm. Ah, crap, he swore. Gurus looked at him. What? I'm out. And there were a lot more pods in the way. That's a problem. Javik didn't see a problem. There was a simple way to go about it. He pointed his assault rifle and fired off a quick burst. The 3 pods he shot exploded. That's how we take care of them, he declared. Works for me, Naruto agreed, pointing the beasts at the pods. Gurus and Ararax followed their examples. The young Turian felt a little out of place as they cleared the pods. It had been his job to do that, but now the others were doing it, and at a faster pace too. Even when he found another firestorm and went back to spraying, it didn't feel the same. You alright, Ararax? His teacher asked. Yeah, just not feeling as useful. How? He looked down at the flamethrower in his hands, then at Naruto and Javik clearing the path with their guns. They're doing that a lot better than I was with these. Gurus looked at them. He could see how his student felt like he was being less useful. But he also knew how to get him going. Naruto was the one who gave you the flamethrower. So? He wanted to see what you were capable of. Are you going to disappoint him? Me? What? No. He didn't want to disappoint him. Gurus was his teacher. That meant something. Then don't stop now. He gestured to the front. There are still pods to clear. That was all Ararax needed to hear. He moved back to the front. Excuse me, he said, pushing past Naruto and Javik. Once he was in front, he went to work burning the pods. Javik took notice of something. The Arachni usually dwell on toxic planets. This is different. The Reapers must have changed them, Gurus told him. They definitely look different. I bet they're breeding an army down here. There was a small chasm they had to jump across. They took turns jumping across so they landed safely. You think so? He asked. Yeah. Breeding like flies. He stopped and looked at Shibi. The Aburame looked back with no expression. And this place is well hidden, he said quickly. I mean, it adds up. Yeah, it does, Naruto agreed. And they seem to be doing their best to make sure we don't get to that central chamber. Well, they were going there all the same. The path led upwards, making them climb over rocks to keep going. They had to be careful when they climbed since the pods were scattered in clumps on the way up. Let us deal with them, Javik told Ararax before he could fire the flamethrower. Why? He asked. Gurus was the one who answered that question. You have to consider the arc of the fire, Ararax. It's different when you're pointing up at an angle. You don't have that problem with a gun. Okay. He lowered the firestorm and let Naruto and Javik clear the path. He refused to let that get to him. They reached the top and jumped over another small chasm. The path led downward and there were no pods blocking their path. It looked like they were clear, at least for now. But as they went down the path, moving through a narrow tunnel, they heard the sound of gunfire. The further they went in, the louder it got. Who is that? Shibi asked Naruto. Grunt, he answered. Like he had been heard, Grunt came onto the comm sensei. We're blocked. And getting overrun. They saw the Krogan commandos from a ledge. The Arachni and other Reaper creatures were gaining ground on them. Given enough time, they would kill them. We're coming, Grunt, Naruto told him. Just hang tight. Move it, sensei. Javik took one look at the scene and came to a conclusion. They will not last long. They need help. Naruto looked at the scene, then at Shibi. You think you could jump that? He asked. He looked at the distance, judging it quietly for a moment. Yes, I could make it, he finally said. Good. Help them out. The Aburame backed up a couple of steps and took a running leap. He cleared the distance easily, landing in a roll. He came up out of it, and his insects came flying out, swarming out towards the enemy. The commandos were surprised by the sight of him, but they didn't question their good luck. They left that to their commander. What the? Who is this? Grunt demanded. He's a friend, Naruto told him as his team followed the path down and away. Ararax took the lead, burning the pods and webbing away. Why didn't I see him above ground? He's suspicious, Matatabi told the blonde. Not surprising, Kurama said shortly. I wasn't going to whip him out if he wasn't needed, Naruto told the fox. Sure. It was painfully clear to everyone that the fox was done with the conversation. It was annoying for Naruto, but there was nothing he could do about it. They also didn't have the time for it. He's on our side, Grunt, he told the Krogan. Don't shoot him and he'll be just fine. Alright, fine, he agreed reluctantly. The path led them into a room where another shield. But this time, the technical node they needed was right in front of it. They didn't know if it was because of the shape and size of the room or poor planning. It really didn't matter. 2 bullets from the beasts, and the shield slid down into the ground. As they started to move, Arax saw movement at their rear. It came from another tunnel in the wall. The commandos were pulling back through it. We've got friendlies, he told the others. They turned. The commandos jumped down to the ground beside them. The 2 at the rear were Grunt and Shibi. They held off the rest of the Arachne until the creatures decided to retreat. Grunt made sure it wasn't a feint before jumping down. Thanks, Sensei, he told Naruto, walking over to him. That wasn't webbing stopping us. That was Reaper tech. He nodded in agreement. We ran into it as well. Your friend helped more than I thought he would. He glanced back at Shibi, staring for a moment. He looked at his teacher. There's something off about him. I don't know what. He's dead. He's been dead for 2,000 years. Grunt wanted answers. It showed on his face. Later, the blonde told him. He's on our side. He didn't like it, but he also knew he was right. He glanced at the shield and the broken node. He knew what happened there. The Arachne have backed off for now, he told Naruto, but they can smell our wounds. Any worthy enemy would regroup and finish us. Soon. That meant they were losing time. We're nearly there, Grunt, Naruto assured him. These shields were blocking us. That means something is worth being protected down there. He looked down the passageway himself. It was long and small in space. It didn't have any branches so the Arachne could attack from out of nowhere. But that also meant they would come from one direction only. Given the size and space of the tunnel, they could overrun any party in it in a matter of minutes. So that meant a rear guard had to be maintained to protect them. And the room they stood in now was good a place as any to fight. We'll dig in here, kill anything that moves, he told Naruto, buy you some time. The shinobi understood. Shibi will stay with you. He looked over at the Aburame. They both knew he could have ordered it, and Shibi would have been forced to obey. But he asked silently, and Shino's father nodded silently in acknowledgement. Grunt nodded. I'll take all the help I can get. He walked past Naruto, back to his own team. Good luck, the teacher told his old student. He looked back with a confident look. I don't need luck. I've got ammo and chakra. He pulled his gun free. Krogan! Get ready! Naruto looked at his team. They walked into the tunnel, ready for what would come next. Heads up! More eggs, Gurus warned the others when he saw them. Got it, Arax said, bringing the firestorm to the front. Naruto held a hand at him. Wait! Seeker bugs were scurrying away from the pods, going further into the tunnel. It was puzzling. He lowered the hand. Go slow. The path came to a shortening stop just out of sight from the Krogan. It narrowed into a tunnel that was only big enough to crawl through, and barely at that too. Naruto knelt down and looked inside. It was faint, but he could see a light at the end. Come on, he told the others. Arax stared at the tunnel. Wait, we're going in there? Gurus was already on his knees, ready to follow the human in. We are, he told his student. Javik was beside them, waiting for his turn. Oh great. Are you scared of tight spaces? The Prothean asked. No. He just had a healthy respect of what could happen in that situation. Then you have nothing to complain about. He followed Gurus and Naruto in. Arax had no choice to go in after him. The first thought that came to Naruto as he started crawling was all he would need was a lot more dirt, and he would be back at Kumo. He pushed back that thought and kept on crawling. The end came quicker that way. When he came to his feet, he stared at the room. What he saw made him still. It did the same thing to Gurus when he stood up. What is that? The cavern was large, larger than anything else in the tunnels. There was Reaper tech burrowed into the columns. But that wasn't the most surprising thing. Neither were the Krogan corpses webbed into the rocks and ground. The most surprising was the large insect creature being chained by Reaper coils. What we've been looking for, Naruto told him. He had a feeling about who that creature was. He reached for the calm Grunt. We found it. Good. We got your back, Sensei. The Krogan replied. From the way his voice sounded, he was busy fighting. He looked to his team. Come on, we've got to move. They hopped down to the floor and started heading for the creature. But then shields started springing out of the ground, behind and in front of them. Shit! Let's move! Gurus shouted. They ran, trying to reach the creature. They didn't move fast enough. The shields blocked their path and leaving them trapped in the outer area. Shit! Naruto swore. Javik said, You said that already? It was worth saying again. What do we do? Ararax asked. We find the power node. Gurus found it first. It was up on a column. Up there, he told the others, pointing his rifle up at the node. A quick couple of shots destroyed the node and brought a shield on the side down. Ararax had been facing the shield when it came sliding down. He saw the Rachni on the other side first. We've got Rachni! He shouted, turning the flamethrower towards and squeezing the trigger. They're more than just Rachni coming at them. Naruto saw husks coming at them too. Move forward, he told the others. Do what now? Gurus asked, even though he moved forward. There's got to be a node around here somewhere. We find it. We break it, and the shields come down. Got it. They traversed through the liquid, fighting both the Rachni and the creatures as they moved. Javik was the first to see the node at the far end of the area. There! He shouted, pointing it out to the others. There were also husks in the way. Can you clear a path? Naruto asked him. He took a moment to give the blonde a look that questioned his intellect. Then he flared his green biotics and threw it at the creatures. It let loose like a wave, smashing into them all and slamming them against the wall. The force was so great that they didn't get up. He looked at the blonde again. If he had an eyebrow, he would have raised it. Thank you, Naruto said. He quickly went over to the power node, ready to shoot it. Naruto, watch out! Gurus shouted. He didn't look. He didn't question. Once he heard that shout, he reacted on instinct and threw himself backward. It was a move made just in time. Twin lasers tore through the space where he had been just moments before. When his back hit the ground, he rolled backwards to his feet, bringing the beasts out. He pointed them at the Rachni and opened fire. The creature shrieked as the bullets tore through its flesh. It fell to the ground dead. Thanks for that, Gurus, the shinobi said. No problem. He turned his attention back to the node, shooting it. Did that get the shield down? He asked once it broke. Ararax was watching the main path. Not the one we want, he answered. The shield on the other side slid down, but the shield blocking the path ahead was still up. There might be another power node we need to find. Guess we're going to go find it. Gurus and Javik saw that was going to be a problem. Rachni and husks were coming out of the new area, right towards them. We're going to have to fight our way to it, the Turian told them, bringing his rifle to bear. Naruto bit back a snarl of frustration. We don't have time for this. There's nothing we can do about it, Commander, Javik told him bluntly. Wanna bet? He looked inwards to the fox. A little help? I should let you flounder out there, Kurama said shortly. It wasn't exactly a dismissal, but it wasn't an acceptance. Come on, Fox. I need some help here. Now is not the time to bring up my doubts about the scroll. I'm more concerned about you being a coward with that scroll. Hey, he's in the middle of a fight, and you want to talk about his actions? Shikaku rhetorically asked the Kyuubi. Just give him the chakra already. You can have a nice lovely chat later when we're not in the middle of a bug's nest. Hey! Komiai protested. I wasn't talking to you, Komiai. Kurama scowled both at the tanuki and the blonde. Fine, he finally said. But you need to stop being a coward and actually talk to Tsunade, Naruto. I'll worry about that if we got out of here alive, the blonde said. Can I have that chakra now, please? The cavern became bright with a golden light. The sheer brightness made both the Rachni and the husks screech in pain, pulling back and try to hide from it. Javik and Ararax could only stare in stunned wonder as the golden chakra cloaked Naruto. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. Where'd he go? The Turian asked. Rasengan. They both turned around just in time to see the jutsu smash into the shell of Rachni. The shell broke and the jutsu tore into the flesh and machinery. It shrieked in pain before the blue sphere tore it apart. From there, Naruto struck all the enemy creatures like chain lightning. The rest of his team only watched as he tore through them all. Hands appeared out of his cloak and took out the ones he wasn't fighting. They either swatted them away or destroyed them with Rasengans. Try as they might, the creatures didn't have a chance. One arachne tried to shoot him but got swatted away. It flew clear across the area and landed on the node hard. It damaged the node with its crash, and then the guns discharged right into it, destroying it completely. The shield slid down as the fight ended. Naruto looked at it as the cloak vanished from sight. Huh, that's a pity. What? Geras asked him as the rest of the team came over to him. I was going to try to destroy the shield with my jutsu. He wanted to see if it could work against Reaper tech. There was a sudden shriek pierced the air that reverberated the cavern. They all pointed their guns out, ready for what happened next. But nothing did happen. The seeker insects on the ground scuttled back into the cracks in the walls, running away from them. What's going on? Ararax asked. I don't know, Naruto said, keeping the beasts up and pointed. Grunt came onto the comm sensei. The arachne are backing off. Whatever spooked them won't last. Finish the job. Working on that now, Grunt, he told his old student. They came up to the giant insect. Their pace slowed as they got closer. It turned its head down to look at them. Naruto could tell that it was looking at them, trying to figure them out. See, Lens, a Krogan corpse said beside them. Ararax swung the flamethrower to the corpse. Did that body just talk? He asked. It wasn't the only one, Geras said, looking up and around. All the Krogan corpses were talking, saying the same words. Naruto wasn't looking at them. He was looking at the insect. It was the one talking. He knew because he had heard something like this before, on Noveria. The maddening sour note has ceased. You're the queen, aren't you? He asked. The one I let go on Noveria. Geras stared at the insect with surprise. Wait, that's her? He had seen an image of the queen Naruto had talked to on Noveria. It had been smaller, probably a little bigger than him. This creature towered over him, and its legs stretched out everywhere. The queen didn't nod, but the Krogan all said yes. The last queen. We listen for the children. They are silent, hollow. The machines come and take them to war. They die alone, silent, far away. She sounded angry, very angry about what happened. It sounded like the machines she was talking about were the Reapers. Naruto wanted to be sure. The Reapers did this to you? He asked. Yes. The sour note of the machine is everywhere. Why are you here? Back on Noveria, you said that you wouldn't get involved. That you would hide away and stay out of sight if I let you go. We remember. We kept our promise, retreated back through the relay. We started a new home. Beautiful children. Harmony. But the machines came. They heard our song. Their shriek of sour notes drowned us out. But they're gone now. If he had to guess, the nodes were what was providing the sour note to her. Now he was glad that Arachne destroyed the last node. Yes, we understand. Do the Reapers still have a hold on you? Do they control you? If they did, he would have to kill the queen. He didn't want to do that. We hear the machines, but they cannot control us. It turned its head towards one last node close by. Remove this last shackle and we are free. Sounds easy enough, he said, mostly to himself. He was waiting for the complication. The ceiling rumbled and there was a faint shriek. The queen looked upwards. What? The children return. They will destroy us all. Release us, she begged. We're getting movement here, Grunt warned over the comm. A lot of movement. Thanks, Grunt, Naruto said over the comm. He looked up at the queen. You want to fight back against the Reapers? We hate the machines, she told him, and the voices of all the Krogan made it that much obvious. We will fight for our unborn children. Release us. Geras was looking over the queen as the talking went on. He noticed something not good. When Naruto was done talking, he talked to him. She's badly wounded. She needs too much time to escape. The ceiling rumbled again, and the shrieking got louder. The queen looked to the ceiling with a concerned sound. Sensei, we're out of time. Grunt shouted into the comm. We stay here. Airlock company dies. Is that clear? Naruto didn't panic. Javik, shoot the node, he ordered, holstering the beasts. He walked up to the queen. Can you bring your head down? Why? She asked. I'll give you a hand. She did as she was asked, and he took on the Kyuubi's chakra. The light filled the cavern as he touched her head, channeling a little bit of the chakra into her. He healed enough of her wounds to make her escape that much faster. Ararax watched the scene with the same stunned sense of awe he had moments ago. But this time, There was a word he could to describe what he was seeing, and it wasn't woe. Beautiful, he said in a voice he later decided was reverent. While Gurus could think the same thing, he also knew the other side of the coin. It's only beautiful when he's not angry, he told his student. When he is, it's downright terrifying. Once he was done healing, Naruto withdrew the hand and deactivated the cloak. Thanks, Kurama. The fox didn't say anything back at him. The notes, the queen said, this time beside his ear like at Noveria. Again, the notes you sing are so bright and pure. They color the skies and the stars with their spectrum. She looked down at him. Who are you, to paint with so bright colors? Someone out of his own time, he said. Your song is an old one. That was beside the point. He looked over at Javik. The node was destroyed. You need to get going. He reached for his calm grunt. Pull airlock company back to our position and lead us out. You're going to let the queen die? He asked. No, the Rachni will get free. You won't be doing the stalling. He brought his hands together. Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu. The cavern flooded itself with his clones. Get to Grunt's location, he ordered. Hold off the Rachni with Shibi. Go! Ararax watched all the clones run for the tunnel they came out of. There was a small clog as they all climbed through, but they crawled fast, and the clog faded away. It was something to see, and he was completely bewildered by it. He looked at his teacher. Didn't you say they used to call him something? He asked. Gurus nodded. Kage no Gunhai. What does that mean? He was glad he had looked it up the first time he heard it. Shadow Army. But don't call him that. He doesn't like the nickname much. Why? It sounded fearsome to him. If said right, it could strike a chord of terror in someone. It's because of his clones. He looked at the blonde mass. What about them? They're clones. Doesn't mean they don't think and speak for themselves. They often argue and complain with him. He remembered when Naruto first introduced the concept of a suicide wagon to his team. Back then, Gurus had thought he was a little crazy. Now he knew to expect a suicide wagon whenever the situation called for it. And while they might not have a wagon or any kind of vehicle, he'd say the clones were doing a suicide wagon tactic. Once Naruto was sure his clones were all in the tunnel, he looked at the queen. Go, he told her. Live. We thank you, singer of the bright notes, she told him. She turned around, quicker than she would have if she had been injured, and fled down the tunnel behind her. He watched her go before turning away. Grunt, we need an exit, now. Give me a moment, sensei. A second later, and the cavern wall blew open. The smoke cleared and Grunt stood at the edge with his commandos. They all jumped down to the ground, quickly checking the area. Nice timing, Gurus remarked. Once they were clear, Grunt motioned for them to follow. There was a path off to the side that led the way they came. If they took that, they would get out. Everyone started running. Naruto fell in behind Grunt. Your friend is going to be pulling up the rear, he told his sensei. Keep the Rachni from hitting us there. I told the clones to keep him with them. He refused. The shinobi wasn't surprised by that. There was nothing he could do about it either. Whatever. So, speed run? Grunt asked him. He nodded. Speed run. Right. He looked at his Krogan. Move it, you Pyjaks. They quickened their pace into a full-on run. Jiraiya, Anko, Hashirama, come in, Naruto said into the calm. Sensei, why do you sound like you're running? Anko asked. I'm running. Oh. That was beside the point. Get Cortez to warm up the shuttle and stand ready. We're coming out running. Jiraiya quickly responded. Got it, Sensei. Hey, Cortez. Done with the calm, he focused on the running. He kept his eyes open to his surroundings. There were Rachni coming out of everywhere. Grunt up top. He warned the Krogan, pulling the beasts free. But his old student had his shotgun and opened fire. Already taken care of, he said shortly. The Rachni fell to the ground dead. They all sidestepped its decomposing body and kept on running. Hearing all the shrieks made Ararax look back. He saw the Rachni, but there was also something else. Hey, there's someone back there, he called out to the others. Gurus looked back. Hey, Naruto, isn't that your friend? It looked like he was trying to hold off the Rachni and run backwards at the same time. He is, the blonde said without looking back. Shouldn't we help him? Ararax asked. We can't slow down. If they slowed down, they would get swarmed over. They were already back in the tunnels. There was a greater chance of getting trapped here. When they came to a fork in the tunnel, he checked the tunnel on the left. It was filled with Rachni, all coming towards them. As soon as they saw him and the others, they would be coming swarming in and overrun them. The only way they could be stopped was if someone held them off. A Krogan hand landed on his shoulder. He looked and saw Grunt. "The shuttle's down that path," he said, gesturing at the other tunnel. His Krogan came to his side. "We'll hold them off." He looked at Grunt for a long second, knowing full well what he was doing. He was giving them a chance to get out of there. He was sacrificing himself. "Pull back if you can," he told Grunt. "We'll keep the shuttle down as long as we can." "Don't do that. Just go already." "No, I'm not leaving anyone behind, Grunt. Not when I have a chance to get them out." He was frustrated. It showed in how his blue eyes blazed. "Get out of here, Naruto," he ordered, pointing to the other path. That was the first time he called the blonde by his name. It made Naruto realize that Grunt was doing this to protect him and the others, not just for blood and glory. He had grown. He couldn't stop him. What he could do was part on one last piece of advice. "Remember my first lesson, Grunt." Never forgot. He grabbed the blonde by the shoulders and plopped him in front of the right tunnel. "Now get moving!" Naruto looked at his own team. "You heard him. Come on." They turned to the tunnel and ran down. "All right, Pyjax," they heard Grunt say to his team. "It's our turn." None of them looked as they heard the sounds of gunfire erupt. It started fast and loud, but it began to peter out. They wondered for a moment if it was because they were getting farther away or because the fighting was going the one way they didn't want it to go. That moment passed and they kept their focus on getting out. They saw the light start to appear at the end of the tunnel. The further they went, the bigger the light grew until finally it showed them the outside. They came out just outside the scout camp. The shuttle had landed nearby. It was hovering and the hatch was open. Jiraiya was standing at the hatch. He started waving when he saw them. "They're here!" he shouted at the others. Hashirama poked his head from behind him. "They're here." "I heard Jiraiya, Hashirama," Anko told him from inside the shuttle. "Everything all right, Commander?" Cortez asked over the comm. Naruto looked back at the tunnel entrance. There was no one else coming out of it. "We're the last people coming out. We good to go?" he asked, looking away from the tunnel. "Shuttle is waiting." Jiraiya smiled at Javik as he came up to the shuttle. "Hey Jav," he said. "Glad to see you're still alive." The Prothean stopped just before he was about to climb onto the shuttle and looked at him. "Jav?" he repeated, looking puzzled. "Yeah, like Javik, just shortened." "Why would you do that?" "What?" "Shorten my name." He looked at Hashirama. "Was this a quiz?" It felt like a quiz. "Why shouldn't I?" he asked the Prothean. "It's my name." "And?" "You do not have the right to shorten my name. Only I can." That sounded more confusing than it should have been. "Wait, your people actually did stuff like that to your own name?" "That doesn't matter." Hashirama saw how intently Javik was looking at Jiraiya. He looked like he was about 2 seconds from grabbing him with his biotics and throwing him up and down. "He was giving you a nickname, Javik," he explained quickly. He looked at the second boy. "Was he?" "Yeah." "And how is shortening my name a nickname?" He actually sounded serious and curious about it all. He wanted to know, in spite of the situation they were in. "Can we worry about this later?" Gurus asked the Prothean. "Like when we're not on a planet that's full of Rachni that'd like to overrun and kill us?" "He's got a point, Jav," Jiraiya said, nodding in agreement. The Prothean looked at them both for a long moment. It was plain to see he wanted an answer to everything right then and there. But he also knew that Gurus was right. "Move, if you would," he told the genin in front of him. "Right." He quickly got out of the way and the Prothean climbed in. Everyone else on the ground got into the shuttle too. Naruto was the last one. Before he climbed in, he looked back at the tunnel. He held on to a small hope that Grunt would make it out. But that hope didn't seem like it would happen. "Naruto, come on," Gurus called from inside the shuttle. "We have to go." "Yeah, okay," he agreed, turning to the shuttle. But just as he grabbed the handle to step up, he heard footsteps behind him. He also saw Gurus's stunned face. He quickly turned around. Grunt was being helped by 2 of his commandos while a third and Shibi made sure there was nothing coming out of the tunnel behind them. All of the Krogan were covered in blood and gore, but none more so than Grunt. He was covered from head to toe. Naruto didn't care about that. He was just happy to see his old student, and his friend. Grunt! He shouted, running over to him. Geras was right behind him. They took him from the commandos, putting his weight on their shoulders. Anybody got something to eat? Grunt asked in a hoarse whisper. What happened to your voice? Geras asked him. He roared, one of the commandos told him, a lot. It was what drove off the Rachni. We still would have been dead if it hadn't been for him, the other Krogan said, looking back at Shibi. He came behind us and pulled us out. It was like the Rachni was horrified of him. Naruto wondered for a moment if it was because of the fact Shibi was dead, or because he was an Aburaim. He helped Grunt get into the shuttle and made sure the others were on board too. Thanks, he told Shibi, turning around to look at him. You saved him. I did what anyone would have done, he said shortly. He brought his hand up and folded it into a hand seal. Well, it's time for you to go. Thanks again, Shibi. Naruto, he said before he was dismissed. I have something to say. The blonde stopped himself before uttering the word. What? I know why you called me instead of Shino. I won't argue it with you, but I will say that you shouldn't hide. Hide? He tried to make himself puzzled. The dead man didn't buy it for a second. You'll have to talk to your friends sooner or later, Naruto. We both know that I'm right. Just as we both know that you're not a coward. Kurama barked out a harsh laugh. Clearly this guy hasn't seen you lately. Shut up, Fox, Naruto told him. You really think I would? He was right. So the blonde chose to ignore him. Goodbye, Shibi, he said. It was good to see you again. Goodbye, Naruto. I'll tell the others I saw you. He brought the hand seal up again and whispered Kai. The man in front of him vanished in ashes and paper. It all fell to the ground in a heap of a mess, the white Setsubati peeking out just a little bit. He incinerated the whole thing with a Katon Jutsu. All right, he said, climbing into the shuttle. Let's go. Yes, sir, Cortez said from the cockpit. The hatch closed behind Naruto, and he felt the shuttle lift up into the air. He started for a seat but then froze. Damn it, he said when the moment passed. What is it, Naruto-sensei? Hashirama asked from where he saw with his teammates. Ararak sat beside them, looking curiously at him. I just got the memories from my clone with the other team. That got Kurisa's and Javik's attention. What happened? The Turian asked. The mission was successful, but also a failure. He walked over to a seat and sat down with a tired sigh. What does that mean? Anko asked him. She was curious because she had never of something like that. Either the mission was successful, or it wasn't. Location, the Normandy. Everyone got the full details when both teams got back to the ship. The mission to Tuchenka was a success in that they found Lieutenant Victus. They discovered that he had been sent on a mission to defuse a bomb that had been placed on the planet during the Krogan rebellions. But in the process of doing so, he got the majority of his men killed and the rest had been pinned down. Once they were rescued, Lieutenant Victus insisted on completing the mission and Naruto's clone agreed with the idea. They had found the bomb and they also found the Akatsuki trying to reactivate it. It had been a battle that wiped out most of the remaining Turians. Lieutenant Victus had been on top of the bomb, trying to defuse. In the end, the only he could have done it successfully was if he sacrificed himself in the process. The clone heard his last words clearly, and that meant Naruto heard them too. They hung by his ear ever since he got the memories. Victory at any cost. Now, he sat at the mess table, eating dinner. He found no joy in it though. He had just come from the war room where he told the Primarch what his son had done. Victus was sad but didn't show it publicly. He thanked Naruto for finding his son and helping him complete his mission. The blonde had seen the look on the father's face. He would mourn later, in private. But now, he had a war to fight. He hated that kind of look more than watching parents sob or plead for the news not to be true. He hated seeing professional shinobi see their dead children be brought and make silent promises to mourn later. When would be later? He never knew for certain, but he had to guess that it was after the war, if any of those parents survived. Commander? Sam asked as she approached the table, holding a tray of her own. He looked up. She was standing behind a chair, unsure if she should sit down or not. He would have thought after all their sparring, she wouldn't be so hesitant around him. Go on and sit down, Sam, he told her. She sat down like she was told. You alright? Yeah, I'm fine. It didn't look like he was fine. He actually looked like he was deep in thought about something troubling. Are you sure? She asked. She tried to go for something lightly funny. I can't have my sparring partner flaking out on me. He smiled and chuckled. Thanks for that, Sam. But you're still working your way up to being my partner. She smiled back, knowing full well he didn't mean the insult. But she was still concerned. Are you sure you're alright, Commander? He picked some of his meat with his fork. He hadn't really been eating his food as much as he had been playing with it. Finally, he put the fork down. It hasn't been the best of days, he admitted. Everything alright? In a sense. He was being evasive. She could see that. What happened? She asked him, getting right to the point. She found that was the best course of action when it came to Naruto. He always appreciated it. And she wasn't wrong. I told a father his son had died, he told her. The Primarch? She had heard the scuttlebutt, same as everyone else. He nodded. He thanked me for telling me. And that was it. He wasn't sad? No, he was. He would just mourn later. He rubbed his forehead, trying to ease some of the tension out of there. Honestly, I would have preferred if he had punched me across the face. Hell, I would have gladly taken a beating from him than just his stoic silence. I don't think you would have gotten that from him, sir. He's a Turian. He must feel responsible for sending his son to his death. He got that part. Gurus had told him about Turian culture. If someone made a mistake, it wasn't just reflected on them but on the person who promoted them. He mentioned that the Primarch might have promoted his son unnecessarily, which wasn't a good thing. He was redeemed in the fact that he had sacrificed himself to complete the fact, and had the respect of his men for doing so. Still would have preferred it if he had punched me, he told her, finally picking up a piece of meat and eating it. That would have hurt, she told him. I know. That's the point. I could have handled that. But every time I saw someone being stoic about a loved one's death, it just made me feel all the more helpless. Samantha really didn't know what to say to all that. She wasn't a shrink. But she also got the feeling that he didn't want to talk to a shrink. Sounds like you need something to take your mind off of the war, she remarked. That'd be nice. He also needed to take his mind off who was in the medbay right now. Coward, Kurama snapped at him. She looked down at her tray. She hadn't really eaten anything yet. How much have you eaten? She asked him. Not much. Why? Feel like going down to the shuttle bay and going a few rounds? He looked at his food for a long moment. When he looked up, there was a grateful smile. You know what? I would love that. They both got up from the table and threw away the food. As Samantha walked with him to the elevator, she could feel the eyes of everyone nearby on them. Have you heard the scuttlebutt? She asked. People seem to think that we're sleeping together. Naruto rolled his eyes at that. I don't know why people would think that. If I wanted to sleep with you, I wouldn't do it in a shuttle bay. Arya might have ragged on him for not being kinky, but there was one thing he took from Jiraiya's lessons about women: sex stayed at home. She eyed him for a moment, and her curiosity getting the better of her. Where you sleep with me? She asked before thinking better of it. How many people heard that? He looked at her and took her question in stride. In the Denver. Where else? She was glad they got into the elevator at that moment. The number of people watching them vanished altogether once that happened. Feeling bold, she asked him another question. Just how many people have you invited up there? None, he said. The last person I slept with was Arya, back during my time fighting the collectors. She did the mental math in her head as the elevator doors closed. That was more than 6 months ago. Yep. Depressing, isn't it? Actually, I think it's impressive. I don't think there's a lot of men who could say they were able to go that long. Well, thanks for the vote of confidence. I didn't know I had such fortitude. She couldn't stop the giggle that came out of her mouth when she heard that. It made him laugh too. They walked out of the elevator with a better mood than when they left the mess table. But now a question bounced around in her head. Would the commander and me ever? She couldn't finish the thought, not because she couldn't believe it, but rather because she didn't know if it would ever happen. She pushed the thought away as she warmed up. It was a question for a later time. Codex entry: People Kakashi Hatake. As the son of Tsukumo Hatake, known as Konoha no Shiroi Kiba, Kakashi Hatake was a prodigy shinobi. He was also unique in the fact that he was the only shinobi in the world outside of the Uchiha clan to have a Sharingan. It was clear that Kakashi was a prodigy when he graduated from the academy and became a shinobi in the space of a year, at the age of 5. He joined Obito Uchiha and Rin Noira as Genin team under the leadership of the future Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. When he was 6, he took the Chunin exams and successfully passed. By the time he was 12, he had become a Jonin. He earned in his rank in a time of war, as the Third Shinobi World War was already raging through the elemental countries. His first mission as Jonin was to lead his teammates on a mission to destroy a supply line for IWA while Minato was needed on the front lines. It was this mission to Kanobi Bridge that he gained his infamous Sharingan, as his left eye had been badly damaged beforehand. Obito, his right side having been crushed beneath a large boulder, gave his eye to him. When the cave they were all in collapsed, Kakashi and Rin were able to get out while Obito seemed to have died. This was proven false years later, as Obito was the instigator of the Fourth Shinobi World War. A year later, he would lose Rin after rescuing her from Kiri. Having been made into the Sanbai's Jinchuriki so it would be unleashed once inside Konoha, she willingly stepped in front of Kakashi's Raikiri, allowing the jutsu to pierce her heart. Traumatized by his actions, despite it being forced, Kakashi slipped into a depression and became cold to others. After the war, his old sensei and new Hokage, Minato, assigned him to ANBU. He would serve in the ANBU Corps until the Uchiha clan massacre. The Sandaime Hokage, having taken over after the death of Minato, Kyuubi attack, relieved Kakashi and reassigned him back to the standard forces. He was then placed in charge of freshly academy-graduated teams. He became known for failing each team that was placed under his charge. The only team that he passed became the only team he ever trained, Team 7. Kakashi was a prominent figure in the Fourth Shinobi World War, fighting on several points in the front line. It was often said that wherever Obito was, Kakashi would be nearby. In fact, until the last lake, Kakashi was the only one who fought Obito during the war and lived. Their battles were limited, 4 in total. It was the third that was the most famous, as it is where Kakashi grabbed hold of Obito and pulled him down to the ground. Battle of the Ash Valley. When the war ended, Kakashi was chosen as the Rokudaime Hokage. He would serve in office up to and through the War of the Three Flags. While not as prominent a figure in this war, he was still remembered as a part of Operation Thunder Wave, where he and Godaime Raikage Darui led the assault that crippled the frontier blockade. Once the elemental nations achieved victory, Kakashi retired from the Hokage position, giving it to Konohamaru Sarutobi, and from an active shinobi. During his time in office, he had married and became a father to 3 children, Minato, Rin, and Tsukumo. He died 6 years after retiring and was mourned by all of the elemental countries. At his request, the Sharingan in his left eye, the last piece of Obito, was taken out after his death and was destroyed. In life, 3 things stood out about Kakashi. The first was the fact he held teamwork above the mission being completed. To him, shinobi who abandoned their friends and comrades were lower than scum. The second was how he was frequently late to things and using excuses as getting lost on the road of life. While it was mostly an irritant to people he knew, it was also used as a tactic against his enemies. During Operation Thunder Wave, they leaked the time they were to arrive and appeared 3 hours later, catching the blockade off guard. The last was his devotion to the Ika Ika series. It was said that during the Fourth Shinobi World War, Kakashi was forced to join the Konoha wet t-shirt contest or risk his entire collection being burned by Tsunade. Such was his love for the series that he was buried with the first book. To this day, his remaining set are amongst the most prized collections in the galaxy.